Oh, yeah.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Strategic Planning Committee today. Thanks for all being here. Yeah, we are in a slightly different room than usual, so it's a little bit more organisation. But hopefully everybody's in now, and when we get to speakers and things, I'll explain how we'll deal with that. Okay, let's start the agenda. Membership of the committee. Councillor Firth, do you just want to introduce yourself?
Yes, Chair. Councillor Firth, I'm substituting for Councillor Sokol today.
Thank you, and everyone, all the other members are here as normal. Okay, previous minutes. Is everybody happy with the minutes of the last meeting? Are we okay to move those? Yeah. Okay, so declarations of interest and lobbying. We'll go around the room. Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair. I've been lobbied on application number 10, that's 2020/92350, the Chidswell site, and I'd also like to place on record, I want to place on record that although the application is in my local area, I understandably can see some concerns that residents might have, but I'm coming into this meeting with no predetermined position. I'll be kept open-minded. I am aware of the details that are set out within the officer's report, including the local plan allocation, the outline proposal for the 181 dwellings and the environmental considerations. I will assess the application solely on the planning merits and the evidence presented today and the relevant policies and the professional advice provided. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I've not been lobbied, but in the interest of transparency, on planning application 202092350, on disembarking from the bus, I discovered that the applicant was Mr. Bailey, who I know as a trustee, because I'm a fellow trustee on one community. It will not affect my decision. I will come completely impartial.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I must point out that I was on the planning committee when the original decision on the Haybeck Lane application was made. I am quite prepared to treat this one anew and sorry. My hearing aids tell me that my voice is very loud, but sorry about that. So I will treat this one afresh and look at what is presented before me and what comes here. So I am also have been lobbied on item. No, hang on, it's not that one. It's the last application, item 13. I've been lobbied on by the person making representations in relation to the noise issue, and once again, I'm quite prepared to look at these things with an open mind, bearing in mind all that I'm being told on either side. And I will use the best of my judgment and ability to ensure that it's impartial.
Right, thank you. I just need to declare for the Haybeck Lane one that I'm a member of the Wildlife Trust. I'm a member of the Woodland Trust, the Yorkshire Wildlife Trust, and I sit on the White Rose Forest meeting to look at development of woodland around the area. So I have a keen interest, but I haven't been lobbied, but I have read all the material that's been sent through on that application. And for the Turnbridge Mills one, I have to declare that they are very kindly storing some stuff for Newsom Centre for us till our planning permission comes through, but that will not affect my decision. Thank you.
None, Chair.
Yes, I've received an email from a representative of the Woodland Trust, but I believe it's now incorporated in a pack that's been handed out to us. So I haven't actually read it as yet, but I am working on it.
Okay. Yeah, for the Chidswell one, I've just had communications from Chidswell Action Group and the Woodland Trust as well. Okay, thank you for that, everybody. So, let's get the right thing. Admission of the public. This is a public meeting, and we're also being webcast, so that's fine. There's nothing that will be taken in private. Public question time.
No questions, Chair.
And deputations, petitions.
No deputations.
Okay, so we'll move on to the planning applications. We did undertake 2 site visits earlier today, so we've completed those. So we can move straight to agenda item 10, which is the Haybeck Lane Chidswell site. Hand over to Victor to present that for us.
Thank you, Chair. Victor Grayson, Development Management Master Planner in the Majors and Minerals team. This is item 10 on today's agenda. It's an outline application for residential development of up to 181 dwellings at the smaller part, i.e. Haybeck Lane or Site A of the MXS7 allocated site at Chidswell. Members, it's a bit of an unusual item on today's agenda in that these proposals have already been considered by this committee on 4 previous occasions, including on the 8th of December 2022, when this committee resolved to grant outline planning permission for this development and for development on the adjacent larger site at Chidswell. However, members will be aware that following the issuing of outline planning permission for this site on the 23rd of October 2024, a local organisation, the Chidswell Action Group, sought judicial review of the Council's decision, and although the High Court dismissed the grounds relating to the assessment of the application, the judge quashed the Council's decision on a single procedural ground, which was to do with the fact that the Council had not published a Section 106 agreement prior to the issuing of the decision. And yeah, members, we didn't get that right. We were not getting that right on this and other applications. That's accepted, and the Council has since updated its procedures to make sure that this does not happen again. The High Court decision does mean that the Council needs to issue a new decision on this application, only on this application, not the Chidswell application. It's important to note that the High Court did not find fault with or quash this committee's previous resolution to approve. Therefore, in September of this year, officers' initial view was that if the Section 106 agreement was published in accordance with the legislation, thus addressing the reason for the quashing, the permission could be reissued and the application would not need to be reconsidered by this committee. And that's the advice initially given to Chair and to the Chidswell Action Group. However, upon publishing the draft Section 106 agreement, a significant number of representations were received, many of which specifically requested that the application be brought to committee for reconsideration. And Councillor Zaman and Councillor Scott have also asked for the application to come to committee. So that's the reason why this application is on the committee's agenda today. It's an unusual situation, as I said, and the unusual committee report before members today reflects that unusual situation. It's basically an update report informing members of what's emerged since this committee last considered the application, including in respect of representations and Section 106 negotiations. The previous committee report is appended to today's report, as are fully worded conditions, the latest draft Section 106 agreement, the full text of the High Court ruling, and minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of December 2022. It's probably helpful to members to clarify to you what you are able to consider and discuss today in light of all this application's history. You are not bound by this committee's resolution of the 8th of December 2022. Today you can consider and discuss any planning matters that you consider relevant to this application. In that respect, this situation is similar to other situations that this committee has previously encountered, where an application is determined and then a second application for a very similar development is submitted later. And members might recall, for example, the Cliff Hill Denbydale applications, where we had a situation like that before. In those situations, the advice from officers is that members are free to consider and discuss whatever planning matters they wish to. However, they do need to bear in mind that the government expects local planning authorities to be consistent in their decision making, and I suggest to members that it would be wise to bear in mind the Leeds Road approval, which is extant and has not been subject to judicial review, and also bear in mind other sites that this committee has dealt with where, for example, BNG and impacts on ancient woodlands were relevant. And members will be aware of the risks involved in diverging from previous decisions if there are not good reasons for doing so. So, as mentioned earlier, this application for outline planning permission relates to the smaller part of the Chidswell site. This slide illustrates the locations of the two sites adjacent to each other. The Haybeck Lane site is bounded by existing development along Haybeck Lane and Leeds Road to the north and west, and by open countryside to the southeast. The ancient woodland of Dunwood is located to the east. That's annotated on the larger image there. This slide shows the Chidswell sites in the context of the strategic road network, and annotated here are the nearest A roads, motorways and motorway junctions. This is an aerial view of both sites. Today, obviously, we're looking at the smaller site towards the top of this image. Again, Dunwood is annotated. Haybeck Lane is mostly greenfield land, having been released from the Greenbelt when the local plan was adopted in 2019. And most of the site is in agricultural use. The site does, however, include an existing residential property at 39 Haybeck Lane. This is a closer aerial view of the Haybeck Lane site, in which the old field boundaries and hedgerows within the site are more clearly visible. On the right-hand side, there's a small image of the existing bungalow at 39 Haybeck Lane that I mentioned a minute ago. That would be demolished to make way for the new vehicular entrance proposed for this site. And then next image down where it's annotated 1062 Leeds Road. That's where there's a bus stop and drop curb and overhead cables adjacent to that property. And the Haybeck Lane site is just around the corner behind that house that actually would be demolished as part of the Leeds Road development, but no vehicular entrance to the Haybeck Lane site is proposed at that point. And then the bottom image is the corner of Haybeck Lane and Leeds Road, behind which the development is proposed. Members, I hope these images and today's committee site visit don't give the impression that this development would be entirely hidden or screened behind existing buildings, because it wouldn't be. There are public rights of way to the southeast of the site from where the development would be seen and from where a full appreciation of its landscape impacts would be gained. On this slide, the larger image on the left-hand side shows allocations and designations relevant to this site and to the surrounding area. Red illustrates the site allocation MXS7. This is the local plan allocation that allocates the land that we're considering today for mixed-use development. The site allocation covers an area of 120 hectares and has an indicative capacity of 1,535 dwellings and 122,500 square metres of employment floor space. Within that allocated site, the current application for the Haybeck Lane site covers an area of 7 hectares. And there's also a smaller red shading of an adjacent site, MXS5 on Leeds Road, or just off Leeds Road. Other shadings on this plan denote residential allocations. Those are the areas shaded orange, and hatched purple denotes priority employment areas. On the right, top right, is a image showing some of the public footpaths to the southeast of the Haybeck Lane site mentioned earlier, one of which crosses a part of the application site. And then next image down, a watercourse exists to the south of the application site. After emerging from a culvert beneath Leeds Road, it flows downhill southeastwards. And then in the bottom right, there's an image of showing some of the biodiversity designations. Ancient woodlands, including the adjacent Dunwood, are shown in green. Dunwood is also a local wildlife site. And then brown on that same image denotes the Kirklees Wildlife Habitat Network. Again, this includes Dunwood, adjacent land and vegetation and hedgerows along the public footpath running across that image. In terms of what's proposed at the Haybeck Lane site, just a reminder members, this is an application for outline planning permission with details of access to be considered. However, other matters, i.e. layout, scale, appearance and landscaping, will be considered at a later stage under a reserved matters application, which would be subject to public consultation. As is normal with applications for outline planning permission, limited detail has been submitted regarding actual proposals on the ground at this stage. The applicant has submitted this single parameter plan, which, if outline permission is granted, would define the parameters of any development at this site. Details would then be fleshed out at reserved matters stage. This parameter plan shows a single point of vehicular access off Haybeck Lane and a 20-metre buffer between the development and Dunwood, which is annotated to the right. Maximum building heights of 10 metres abutting the rear boundaries of existing residential properties on Leeds Road and Haybeck Lane are shown. Obviously, this would not mean that 10-metre high elevations would or could be built on the boundary. Normal requirements regarding amenity and distances between buildings would be applied at reserved matter stage. And then further into the site, 12-metre high maximum heights are proposed. The applicant has also submitted this illustrative plan of the Haybeck Lane site. This incorporates existing vegetation, including an important hedgerow, which is shown in darker green. And then this visualization submitted by the applicant is also illustrative. It shows what the Haybeck Lane development might look like. Development would back onto the existing dwellings that you see in this image on Leeds Road and Haybeck Lane. Members, please disregard the employment unit and the roundabout in the foreground. Those would be part of the other larger site, the Leeds Road site. As mentioned earlier, demolition of the existing bungalow at 39 Haybeck Lane is proposed. This is where a new vehicular entrance to the site would be created, as shown here. And then this slide shows the application site outlined in red, with the indicative layout shown as well. It also shows the 20-metre wide buffer, which is hatched green in this slide, and the ancient woodland of Dunwood outlined in green. I'll stay on this slide for some time, members, because it's relevant to the over 115 representations received in recent weeks in relation to this application, many of which included concerns regarding Dunwood and biodiversity net gain. So starting with biodiversity net gain, or BNG, it remains the case that mandatory BNG is not required for this application, as it was submitted prior to that requirement being introduced by law. However, having regard to policy LP30 of the local plan and the Council's biodiversity net gain technical advice note, the applicant is indeed proposing 10% BNG. This 10% BNG would be achieved on site, and if all the 10% can't be delivered there, in the buffer, which is, as I said, what's hatched green in this image. The Section 106 agreement only allows that 10% would be delivered in those locations. None would be delivered in Dunwood. Representations have raised concerns that it may not be possible to achieve 10% in these locations. However, the applicant's assessment indicates that it would be, and officers concur, having regard to the density of the proposed development and also the significant size, 1.5 hectares, of the buffer. A lot can be delivered in that buffer space. Concerns have also been raised that there would be nothing to stop the applicant delivering 9.99% of the BNG in the buffer. However, this is not accepted. Details of the BNG works have not been submitted yet. They would not be designed at this outline stage. That's normal. Those details will be subject to officer approval, and officers would have regard to the government's biodiversity gain hierarchy, which prioritises the enhancement and creation of habitat on site over the delivery of off-site gains. As in the committee report brought to members on the 8th of December 2022, it is recommended that arrangements for continued but controlled public access within Dunwood be secured via a Section 106 agreement. The previous committee report for the largest site went into some detail regarding options for handling the additional pressure on Dunwood that this development would bring as a result of increased or intensified use. Controlled access to the woodlands was and still is considered to be the most preferable and realistic way forward, and relevant provisions are included in the draft Section 106 agreement. Physical works associated with providing such controlled access have not yet been designed. However, any such works would be subject to officer approval, as would an ancient woodlands management plan. Concerns have also been raised regarding the impact of construction works on Dunwood. This is addressed by recommended condition 10, which secures protective works during that phase. And then regarding the operational phase, once the work is completed, if permission is granted for it, the applicant's recent technical response anticipates no adverse impacts on Dunwood resulting from noise or changes to air quality arising during operation of the proposed development. This image includes two more extracts from documents appended to the draft Section 106 agreement, which is appended to today's committee report. Firstly, there's an extract from the audit of bus stops surrounding the application site, which has informed the £62,000 bus stop contribution, which officers recommend be secured via the Section 106 agreement. And then the lower image illustrates the locations of the skylark plots, which are proposed on land owned by the applicant to the east of the application site, and where replacement habitat for skylarks is proposed. And then these last three slides illustrate junction improvement schemes at 3 local junctions that would receive additional traffic as a result of this development. The Section 106 agreement would secure contributions towards improvements at these junctions. So firstly, this is the Rain Road, Dewsbury Road, Syke Road junction to the north of the application site, where improvements are proposed. Second junction, this is the Suttle Lane, Leeds Road, Haybeck Lane junction, very close to the application site. Members, you'll recall the committee site visit bus moved over that junction twice today. And then finally, this is the council-designed improvement scheme at the Shawcross junction, where this development's contribution would be pooled with those already secured from other developments that would also bring more traffic to this junction. Those are all the slides, members. I've just got a few more things to say regarding land use and the principle of development. This site is considered to be a sustainable location for residential development, and the proposed residential use of the site complies with site allocation MXS 7. The majority of the site is in agricultural use, and the loss of that use has been considered previously in the report for the adjacent larger site. In representations, it has been noted that no agricultural land classification assessment clarifying whether any part of the site is what's known as best and most versatile agricultural land has been provided, and that for the Leeds Road site, Natural England had advised that such an assessment should be provided by the applicant. However, to summarise what was in the previous committee report, the loss of the site's agricultural use was taken into account, albeit at a high level, during the preparation of the local plan, along with the many other considerations weighed up in the relevant sustainability appraisal. Site allocation MXS7 allocates the site for uses that unavoidably, by their very nature, would result in the loss of the agricultural use of the site. The local planning inspector did not require further consideration of this matter at application stage, and site allocation MXS7 does not require the submission of a ALC, agricultural land classification assessment. In the recent judicial review, the claimants alleged that the council erred by not establishing whether the site contained best and most versatile land before taking its decision, or that it failed to take the likely presence of best and most versatile land into account. However, the Deputy High Court judge ruled that this ground was not arguable. Regarding traffic generation, members will recall that today we're only looking at considering the impacts of the up to 181 dwellings proposed under this application. National Highways are comfortable with the impact that the proposed Haybeck Lane development on its own would have on the strategic road network, and did not request that this development should contribute towards capacity improvements at junction 28 of the M62 or junction 40 of the M1, unlike the Leeds Road site, which is required to contribute towards improvements there. Similarly, given the modelling results submitted by the applicant, officers are satisfied that the proposed Haybeck Lane development on its own would not necessitate capacity improvement works at some of the nearby junctions. However, while the proposed up to 181 units in isolation would not cause highway impacts requiring mitigation, their contribution towards cumulative impacts must still be addressed, and it is recommended that contributions towards junction improvements, as I mentioned in those slides earlier on, be secured accordingly. A safe vehicular access can be provided at Haybeck Lane, and other matters relevant to highways and transport are addressed through the recommended conditions and the Section 106 agreement. Regarding drainage, the applicant proposes an acceptable overall strategy that would direct surface water to existing watercourses at appropriately attenuated rates via sustainable drainage systems such as attenuation ponds. The application has not attracted objections from the Leeds Local Flood Authority or Yorkshire Water. In addition to the BNG and ancient woodland concerns mentioned earlier, representations have again included concerns regarding the age and adequacy of the applicant's ecological surveys. There is detailed commentary on these matters in the previous committee reports. Given the survey work carried out so far by the applicant, given the information gathered and provided by local residents regarding species seen at the site and near to the site, including those species include kingfishers, red kites, otters and others, none of which that information is not disputed by officers, but of course it would need to be verified via the reserve matter stage surveys. Given the responses from Natural England and the Council Biodiversity Officer, who have not objected to the applications, and given the fact that further detailed survey work and revised and updated BNG calculations will be required at reserve matter stage, it is again recommended that further survey work is not necessary at this outline stage, and that a decision to grant outline planning permission can be soundly made. Also of note, there are provisions within the draft Section 106 agreement that would ensure that enabling works at the site could not commence before the required future ecological survey work and the biodiversity assessment is carried out. This addresses one of the grounds considered by the High Court earlier this year. Regarding representations made regarding impacts on woodlands and watercourses, and specifically those made directly to members earlier this week, officers are satisfied that the residual impacts, i.e. the post-mitigation impacts, not the unmitigated potential impacts set out in the environmental statement of the Leeds Road scheme, which is what was put to members this week, are acceptable. The committee report recommends that a wide range of planning obligations be secured via a Section 106 agreement, including in relation to junction improvements, as mentioned earlier, public transport, education, open space, affordable housing. I should mention, members, that a policy-compliant 20% provision would be secured. Drainage, biodiversity net gain and off-site ecological mitigation relating to ground nesting farmland birds, public access to the ancient woodlands and social value, responding to the Council's social value policies. Members can see the contributions, mechanisms and timings for all the planning obligations fully set out in the draft agreement, Appendix 2 of the committee report. Paragraph 5.1 of today's committee report sets out how the recommended planning obligations differ to those recommended in 2022, although of note, the same outcomes would be secured. Conditions are also recommended. Members can see the full wording of these at Appendix 1 of the committee report. Representations received to date are summarised in the committee report and yesterday's committee update. For this Haybeck Lane application, a total of now 517 representations have been received, including the 115 objections received in recent weeks and the 2 submitted directly to members this week. These include representations from bodies including the Chiswell Action Group, the Yorkshire Wildlife Trust and other organisations. And then yesterday, the Woodland Trust clarified directly to me that their concerns regarding traffic and hydrology had been addressed, but their concerns regarding public access and fragmentation had not. There was also a reference in some representations that a representation from the CPRE had not been uploaded to the Council's website or reported to members. We had not received that representation, members. The CPRE resent that representation directly to me this morning, and I can advise members that this representation raised concerns regarding consultation on the Section 106 agreement, bringing the application back to committee and querying how the Section 106 agreement addresses the High Court ruling. The majority of statutory consultees have not objected to the application. Members will be aware that much more information will be submitted at reserved matter stage, including in relation to amenity and residential quality. In summary, it is noted that some harm would be caused by the development, as is inevitable with developments of the scale on greenfield sites with various sensitivities. However, harm would be suitably mitigated where possible, and the residual harm would be outweighed by the proposed development's public benefits, particularly those regarding housing delivery, including affordable housing delivery, which attracts significant weight in the balance of planning considerations. Members will be aware that given the housing delivery situation now applicable in Kirklees, the tilted balance now applies, which further supports the approval of outline planning permission. And members, this consideration did not apply when this committee previously resolved to grant outline planning permission. This outline application before members today relates to a policy compliant proposal that would make a significant contribution to the provision of new homes in Kirklees. Subsequent to the 8th of December 2022 meeting, the Secretary of State decided not to call in the application. And finally, approval of the application subject to conditions in the Section 106 agreement as appended to the committee report is recommended. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we have a number of people to speak on this item. When I call, you can come forward to the chair. So, Councillor Zaman, you will be first, if that's okay. As a ward councillor, you do have 5 minutes to speak. So Sheila's going to time the 5 minutes. We don't have a clock today, so if you do come to 5 minutes, we'll let you know that you've reached your time. But when you're ready.
Chair, members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to speak. I'm speaking on behalf of residents of Batley East, particularly Haybeck and Shawcross, ordinary people who have engaged in this process in good faith for more than a decade. Their views are a material consideration under planning law and they deserve full and proper weight. Residents are not opposed to housing, to development or to growth. They are opposed to this development because based on lived experience and documented evidence, it would cause real, lasting and irreversible harm. I am objecting to this application on core planning grounds, grounded in both the National Planning Policy Framework and the Kirklees Local Plan. First, the harm to ancient woodland. Your planning documents confirm that Dumb Wood is ancient woodland and a local wildlife site protected by TPO and recognised as irreplaceable habitat. This is not a dispute. It is explicitly stated in objections from the Chidwell Action Group and ecological organisations recorded in the committee documentation. The National Planning Policy Framework is absolutely clear under paragraph 193 bracket C, development affecting ancient woodland should be refused unless there are wholly exceptional reasons. Housing numbers alone do not meet this test. The applicant has provided no justification capable of being considered wholly. This alone should constitute refusal. Secondly, the BNG is being exported off-site. Members were previously told that BNG would be delivered on-site. However, the documentation shows that the applicant intends to rely on Dunwood, the ancient woodland, as the mechanism for achieving BNG. This concern is explicitly raised within the representation summarised in the report. BNG cannot lawfully be achieved by using already high-value habitat. You cannot score gain by taking credit for the pre-existing ecological richness of an ancient woodland. Thirdly, the buffer to the woodland is inadequate. In professional submissions from specialist bodies such as the Woodland Trust, it is clearly argued that the proposed buffer of only 15 to 20 centimetres is insufficient to protect against noise, human encroachment, soil compact, dog disturbance, artificial light spill of hydrological distribution, especially given the scale of the scheme. Best practice recommends a minimum of 50 to 200 metres of ancient woodland buffering. This application does not meet that standard. Fourthly, it's unacceptable risk. No robust modelling has been provided demonstrating that the drainage and the SUDS measures will prevent detrimental changes to water conditions within Dum. The planning report confirms that drainage consideration and risks were raised by objectors and ecological bodies. The applicant is asking you to approve first and investigate later. That approach fails the precautions of principle embedding planning, guidance and environmental impact assessment methodology. Fifth, loss of agricultural land. This is productive, functioning agricultural land being permanently lost. At a time of climate instability and food supply risk, the National Policy Framework directs a great weight to protecting high-quality farmland. The harm from irreversible loss has been raised in representation submitted along consultation. Sixth, unproven sustainable transport and capacity impacts. Although the Section 106 lists highway mitigation payments, there is no evidence that local junctions, Rain Road, Suter Lane, Shawcross can feasibly absorb cumulative build out of both Chidswell sites plus existing developments. This risk is acknowledged in the committee report's text. Planning permission must be refused if there is insufficient certainty that off-site highway interventions will resolve capacity. Finally, the planning balance tests fail. Even in the context of reduced 5-year supply, the NPPF is explicit in paragraph 11. Permission must be refused where the adverse impact would significantly and demonstratively outweigh the benefits. Here, the harms are irreversible ecological damage, impact on ancient woodland, loss of agricultural land, hydrological and drainage uncertainty, traffic and highways capacity failure, loss of existing amenity and green recreation, risk of unlawful BNG accounting. These harms are certain, cumulative and long-term. Committee members, your duty today is simply to deliver housing numbers. It is not to simply deliver housing numbers. It is to prevent unnecessary harm, especially that harm cannot be reversed. Residents of Haybeck, Shawcross and Batley East have a clear and consistent this proposal does not meet the standards of sustainable, responsible planning. But you also have an opportunity to demand better scheme with stronger safeguard ecological protection and infrastructure that exists before communities are expected to absorb growth.
Thank you, Councillor. Go on, you had your time. Okay, so we have some other speakers. Everybody else who's not a councillor does have 3 minutes to speak. The next person we have is Iqbal Mohammed MP, who's on Teams, I think. Mr. Mohammed, are you ready to speak?
I am. Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you, yeah. When you're ready.
I think my office were informed as an MP that I would also get 5 minutes.
Fair enough, yeah. You can have 5 minutes then.
Thank you so much. I will stick my camera on. Good afternoon, respected members of the committee, and thank you for your time. I'm Iqbal Mohammed, the MP for Dewsbury and Batley. Residents of Dewsbury and Batley have been living with the dread of destruction and loss of this most highly valued local amenity, Haybeck, since 2011, plus the interlinked Chidswell application. Haybeck provides a rare green lung for our communities, giving access to open countryside, cleaner air, ancient Dunwood, hedgerows and nature. Rates of emergency admission due to respiratory disease are higher than the Kirklees average for highly built-up Batley East and Dewsbury East wards. Former green spaces have been built on, so it is critical we maintain local access to open space and nature for communities' health and well-being. Allowing this application would end this. The Haybeck land is not redundant. It is a working farm producing vital food contributing to our food security. Development at Haybeck would lose this soil forever. It is also likely that Haybeck contains best and most versatile agricultural land. Members may remember Freedom of Information requests show a refusal by the applicant's agents to test the soil despite specific requests from Natural England to do so, defying the statutory consultee. A concern at the previous Strategic Planning Committee meeting, this remains a vital point of concern. Approval risks losing rare, good quality agricultural land, which should not be built on according to Kirklees policy. It is essential we preserve our farms for food security, and Kirklees has a duty to play its part. Haybeck's rare, unique mosaic of habitats, soil and wildlife, endangered and protected animals provide vital, irreplaceable and essential roles in slowing temperature rise and climate resilience. Kirklees has a climate emergency responsibility. Haybeck, part of the strategic Kirklees Wildlife Habitat Network, is a huge positive contributor to this. The applicant and the council are paying lip service to national policy on protecting ancient woodlands. The risk to deterioration of ancient Dunwood, which is protected as irreplaceable habitat in national planning policy, are beyond doubt. No actual evidence that the applicant has considered all of the risks through the lifetime of the development, and crucially, how they will be effectively managed, has been presented. Communities are being expected to take it on trust that the Ancient Woodlands Management Plan, including permissive work, will not result in deterioration. The committee report states that officers would not approve works which are harmful to the woodland. See paragraph 7.14 and 7.16. It is worth pointing out that officers did approve the original Section 106 agreement, which would have allowed ecologically harmful works and was only prevented from having any effect by the Chidwell Action Group's judicial review. So expecting our communities to take this all on trust is an unreasonable and big ask. The same point applies to biodiversity net gain split between on-site and off-site, which is referenced in paragraph 7.110. If the legal agreement allows for this split, there is no reason why officers would not approve it. I respect councillors have pressure to bring in funds and to meet housing targets, but not at any cost. Building on biodiverse and agricultural land was highlighted as a grave risk to both nature and climate during the recent national emergency briefing on climate crisis that I attended last week. Community health, food security, protection of nature and the climate emergency, sustainable development are critical material considerations in the planning balance and can outweigh housing need. This application has not shown these responsibilities can be met. I therefore respectfully ask members to do the right thing and refuse this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Sally Naylor. Sally, if you want to come to the microphone. You'll have 3 minutes to speak, so you can start when you're ready.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. Dunwood, its veteran trees and hundreds of years old ecosystem is irreplaceable. Scarce habitat of great importance and protected by the NPPF. Connected hedgerows, which this application cuts across, and currently linked watercourses are strategically important material considerations in the Kirklees local plan, being part of the Kirklees Wildlife Habitat Network. This application causes fragmentation, loss of interconnectivity and loss of integrity. Expert witnesses, including the Woodland Trust, who recommend refusal, state impacts are consistently underestimated or not addressed at all, with no evidence mitigation is feasible, contrary to NPPF 193C, and do not reflect Natural England and Forestry Commission standing advice. Without assessment of feasible mitigation impacts, it's impossible to determine the appropriateness of the S106. These critical habitats should be conserved in perpetuity, but there's no cost-up plan and no funding beyond 30 years. Yorkshire Wildlife Trust, YWT, flags serious concerns over adequacy of measures to protect Dunwood and that approval would be unacceptable. District-wide important numbers of resident breeding red-listed skylarks nesting here every year, drawn plots doomed to failure by urbanisation and predation. Specially protected species like our breeding kingfishers, breeding barn owls and species of conservation concern like our otters are omitted from surveys, downplaying impact, wouldn't survive inevitable pollution. YWT say an important consideration for biodiversity net gain, BNG, is proposed uplifts must be a quantitative gain upon the existing baseline condition of habitat. Dunwood was excluded from BNG assessments. Accurate, transparent baselines are needed, and YWT initial BNG concerns remain unaddressed. BNG must be in addition to compensatory measures. YWT flag inconsistencies in assessments, find a 20-metre buffer is insufficient, and don't believe the mitigation hierarchy is being followed in the first instance, as development resulting in loss of irreplaceable habitat should be refused. Weighing these material considerations, I respectfully ask the committee to refuse this application and instead support an already delivered area of sustainable food production and climate resilience, teeming with wildlife and a haven for the people of Batley, Dewsbury and Kirklees. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, our next speaker is Jim Aviard. Yep, you've also got 3 minutes, so when you're ready.
Oops. As a Morley Town Councillor, can I claim extra time? If you don't ask, you don't get. Okay, in the home of Rugby League, can I say time on? Chairman, good afternoon. Councillors, good afternoon. Officers, good afternoon. You'll probably recall the planning mantra, the right development in the right place. You've heard lots of things about this not being the right place. So in the words of Monty Python, now for something completely different, I'd like to talk about the right development, which this, in my opinion, is not. At only 20% affordable housing, it's a wasted opportunity. Were it the other way around, 80% properly affordable housing would be a better distribution. We'll be looking at the provision of 1 and 2 bedroom apartments available for first-time buyers. The 3, 4 and 5 bedroomed executive detached are all out of reach of first-time buyers, do little to ameliorate the housing problems that we have. The proposals are basically the same old. I can think off the top of my head of 8 similar developments within a 2-mile radius of this proposed site. They're all the same, all made out of ticky-tacky and all look just the same, to quote the old song. We need to think in terms of these 1 and 2 bedroomed apartments, preferably in medium-rise blocks to save on land areas, and it's a complete change of emphasis. Instead of the developers holding sway, it's the public that need to hold sway. Mention in the reports of infrastructure, schools, doctors, shops, etc. Mentions a primary school. Primary school children have the unfortunate habit once a year of becoming secondary school children. At least one cohort of them do. No mention of secondary education. We know already that the schools are full to bursting. What are we going to do about that? There are similar issues with doctors, issues with shops. Where are we going to put them? How are people going to get to them? It leads to additional traffic, which leads to additional pollution. I live just off the A653, near Tingley Roundabout. My evergreen shrubs with broad leaves are all covered in a thick, sooty black deposit from traffic pollution. This development will do nothing to ameliorate that, and every one of the people who live along that road have the same problem. Once upon a time on a Sunday I could sit in my back garden, it was quiet. Then they built White Rose, then the developments down here started taking place. Now I can't sit in my garden and be quiet on a Sunday, or any other day for that matter. Every half an hour or so there's a tooting on horns which tends to indicate a near miss on the road. Traffic problems are difficult. Is that it?
You've had your 3 minutes, yeah.
Okay, thank you for listening. I would respectfully suggest that you refuse this application until a better proposal is put before you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next person is Mark Lewis. If you want to come forward, Mark. You've also got 3 minutes. Start when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair and Committee, for allowing me to speak. I would like to speak first on the degradation of Dunwood and include extracts from Brooks' Ecological Impact Assessment on behalf of the CC projects. Some of this has already been previously mentioned, but I will repeat it again. The revised plans to introduce public access of 20 metres across the already inadequate buffer zone, in the opinion of Woodland Trust and Yorkshire Wildlife minimum recommendations, typically 40 to 50 metres, would see a significant increase in uses of Dunwood by new residents. Current pedestrian traffic is low, using a small number of unmade footpaths, and increased use is likely to increase the number of informal footpaths and severe damage to the woodland bluebow ground level for which the wood is primarily designated. The risk of fly tipping and indiscriminate setting of fires would also dramatically increase. Without access being strictly restricted, the swathes of species-rich ground flora would be trampled, dug up and soil severely compacted, degrading the floral communities and leading to loss of diversity. These impacts will be negative at district level and continue indefinitely. Impacts on the diverse ground layer would be irreversible if lost, with the loss covering the entire woodland. The likely significance of this impact would be major, with the sensitivity to change being very high. Second point I would like to make is with reference to the coal, which is under the site. This is advice from the Environment Agency and the Coal Board. Shallow coal deposits and inevitable mining waste, which cover the whole site, will contain sulfite materials and heavy metals such as arsenic, lead, mercury and copper. When exposed to air and water during ground disturbance, acid mine drainage can leach these toxins into the surface and groundwater sources. Development activity, excavation for sewers and construction of foundations and ground grading disrupt natural hydrological pathways, leading to contaminated waste to seep into watercourses on site and eventually into Haybeck, the main channel which flows down to the Fenton Dam area. Creating large areas of impermeable surfaces on the site increases volume and speed of runoff, which pick up pollution which will enter the watercourses. Despite testing on the site being done, including boreholes to a depth of 30 metres, no information has been released to the public regarding the results of these activities, and no positive statements have been made that these activities have provided information that the site is safe for development. I understand that copies of these boards have been uploaded onto the site. This particular one shows that the whole site, according to the mining risk assessment, the whole site would potentially be subject to investigation. And I finally cite that one development that was similar to this at Althorpe needed removal of the coal after planning permission of 74 homes, and again these photographs have been placed for you to see. And this is the conditions that resulted in flooding of the woodland areas during the course of the construction.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, and as I'm the last one to speak, obviously we would welcome any questions based on what's been said. Thank you.
Okay, the last speaker is going to be Matthew Naylor, who's the applicant. You've also got 3 minutes to speak when you're ready.
Good afternoon. My name is Matthew Naylor and I'm the Head of Strategic Land at the Church Commissioners for England. Over the past 9 years, I've been personally involved in the proposed development at Chidswell, while the Commissioners have worked in partnership with Kirklees for 14 years. I know the area well, with my family being from Dewsbury. The Church Commissioners remain committed to delivering the homes outlined in this planning application. We are fully invested for the long term and are determined to make sure this development achieves a high standard of design and sustainability. We are naturally disappointed by the outcome of the judicial review, but we of course fully accept that a legally sound process must be followed. It should be recognised, though, that the court's role is to consider legal matters only, and the judge's decision should not confer any concern with the planning balance reached by members in approving the planning application in 2022. Following the publication of the Section 106 in September, the Council received many representations. We have reviewed these carefully and have agreed changes to the Section 106 agreement and the list of planning conditions to respond positively to the matters of concern raised. We firmly believe these changes address all concerns raised regarding biodiversity net gain in Dunwood and the future management of the ancient woodland. It is now explicit that we are not relying on the ancient woodland to achieve our 10% BNG target. We thought we'd always made that clear that we want to try and manage the ancient woodland in a way that facilitates local access and manages the ecological condition. We believe our intentions were clear in the original application, but these are now set out unequivocally in the Section 106 agreement. The judge didn't raise any concerns with the planning application submission or the decision that members previously reached in approving the application in 2022, despite the many and varied grounds put forward by the Action Group's barrister. Whilst various quotations from the judgment have been cited in the written representations, I would note that the document is 47 pages and isolated sentences do not always paint the full story. No new material planning considerations were identified from the judgment, nor have they in the officer's report for this committee. Therefore, there is nothing to suggest a different decision should now be taken, and we have sought to explain this fully and transparently in our written responses. Regrettably, it's now the norm that every planning application for new residential development across the country, regardless of scale, faces significant objection, but we're determined to try and see this one through. In summary, it's clear there are no new material planning considerations raised, which would impact the committee's decision to support the scheme as in 2022. The Section 106 agreement and list of planning conditions have been strengthened further, and the need for delivering new houses in the district has only increased. Finally, I wish to reiterate the Commissioner's long-term commitment to this development and to working with the Council to ensure that these homes are delivered to a high-quality standard.
Thank you. Okay, that's all our speakers, so it's over to members now. Would anybody like to make any comments? Councillor Scott.
I've got several comments that I want to make, but I just want to be clear. We're actually talking about the bio net gain, and we've also mentioned about the 106 contributions. Now, I just want to be clear that it's not any attempt within that 106 monies to treat the existing irreplaceable habitat, the ancient woodland. Is somebody able to tell me that?
Victor, do you want to comment on that?
Through you, Chair. Yeah, that's correct, Councillor. The 10% BNG would only and could only be achieved on-site or within the buffer and would not be achieved through works carried out within Dunwood.
Okay, so then that follows on nicely to my next question. What actually is the size of the buffer zone required? On 181 houses that we've got in front of us, we've got 15 to 20 metres buffer zone. Is that sufficient or is it insufficient?
Victor, do you want to comment on that?
Thank you, through you, Chair. It's not a short and easy answer to that, Councillor. It depends a lot on what kind of habitats are created, how much habitat needs to be replaced from what was lost on the application site, and also what will be provided on the application site itself, which we don't yet know because as this is an outline application, we don't know what, for example, soft landscaping is proposed on site, so a calculation can't be done yet for the on-site measures. Regarding the size of the buffer, it's 1.5 hectares, which is large. As I mentioned earlier, you can achieve a lot. How much you achieve in terms of habitat and hedgerow units within that space depends on what kind of habitats you create. Members, you probably know that things like ponds are very, very valuable, quite high scoring in terms of BNG, but something like short grassland is still valuable in some respects, but less valuable when you're doing your biodiversity calculations.
Just to clarify though, just on that, Victor, so you're talking about the size required for the BNG, but isn't the buffer also about protection of the existing woodland? I don't know if that's part of the question there, because obviously is 15 to 20 metres sufficient to protect the woodland, I guess, is what I was thinking that question meant, but I don't know if you can say anything on that.
Through you, Chair, sorry if I misunderstood. I can quote the government guidance on the issue. From the government's website, it says, for ancient woodlands, the proposal should have a buffer zone of at least 15 metres from the boundary of the woodland to avoid root damage, known as the root protection area. And it does go on to state that larger buffers are likely to be needed where an assessment shows that other impacts are likely to extend beyond this distance. But the Council's ecologist and trees team raised no objection to the 20-metre buffer that's proposed at this site, similar to the 20-metre buffer that was approved by this council at Lepton Great Wood for the Hermitage Park development as well.
Thank you. Did you have any more comments, Councillor Scott?
No, I'll
okay. Anybody else? No, quiet. Well, Councillor Lee Richards.
Yeah, I too was concerned with the width of the buffer. Don't the Woodland Trust recommend a wider buffer, especially with ancient woodland like this, and where the development is as large as 181 properties?
Well, I think Victor's answered that, which is that it's a minimum of 15 metres. Do you have anything more to say?
Just to answer that question through you, Chair, yes, the Woodland Trust, they have a document called the Planner's Manual for Ancient Woodland and Veteran Trees, and it does recommend a 50-metre buffer. It then goes on to refer to smaller and larger buffers, depending on relevant considerations. The Woodland Trust, they're not a statutory consultee. I think in this situation we would need to note the Woodland Trust's guidance, but we do have to refer to government guidance on this issue. And then other organisations also have other recommendations, so the Upper Dearne Valley Environmental Trust and the another body argued for 200-metre wide buffers, so there isn't consensus on this issue.
Councillor Scott.
Yes, I was going to come back in about the Woodlands Trust when you did mention earlier that they were happy with what's been presented now, but surely this should be in the report pack and outlined in the updates that we were given. And the other part of that is I'm really conscious we shouldn't be looking at this application tilting it towards the need for housing. We need to be tilting it towards protecting of ancient woodland spaces or habitat out there that we actually have, because once it's gone forever, and it won't be replaced in my lifetime or in the future. So I really want to make this absolutely clear, because we don't have a full update on the modelling that demonstrates any of the SUDs or drainage or how it will alter and hydrological. These conditions are important because in an outline we want to know what's going to happen. We can't propose something and endorse it and then it doesn't happen. I've just got that conscious in my mind. I'm going to come back. I'm going to give way to other members to come in on this, because I think this is a really important decision that we have to make here today.
Okay, I'll bring other people in and then we can answer any comments together. Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you, Chair. A number of questions for the moment. Ancient woodlands there's been a lot of talk about this because it is important. When to a large extent we have lost to a very large extent, have lost the appreciation of what woods are used or have been traditionally used for, and they often in the past they were used as working places, as opposed to just carbon sinks, which they are useful for, and as part of the working places, the carbon is sequestered as a result of the way the woodland is managed. And I think, well, as part of anything, a lot more education as to what woodland can actually do. But there are two issues that I've picked up listening to what's been said so far. I'm still worried, and I remember being worried at the time that this came before about the agricultural land classification, and I could not understand why there was a distinct reluctance to try and explain what quality land we're talking about here, because certainly in the past there were very detailed maps showing the use of land, and the other issue that has come up is coal, and other members of the committee will know that we've had an issue somewhere else in relation to somewhere else in Kirklees, that is, about the use of coal. Is there actually any reserves of coal in however you put it anywhere on the site? Is that an issue as it was in the case with the Denbydale application? Thank you.
I'll bring Councillor Thompson and then I'll come back to those questions. Councillor Thompson.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's just my usual comment reference to using agricultural land. Never a big proponent of it, and it's almost an ever decreasing circle. What we're doing is where we've got a growing population, therefore we're using agricultural land to house them, which means that we're less self-sustainable. At the moment, we're down at 62% self-sustaining as far as food source is concerned, but we continue to chip away at agricultural land to build houses. So I'm never a proponent of growing on agriculture, and whether it's quality or not, the least you could do is grow grass on it to feed livestock. So it's always of some use. And yes, we can talk about ancient woodland and we can talk about green space and footpaths, etc. But I think the bigger picture that we all need to look at is the fact that we are less likely to be able to feed the people that are going to be moving in those houses and be able to be held ransom by other countries and organisations to be able to feed ourselves. So it was just a comment that I bring up nearly every time somebody talks about using agricultural land for building. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, I mean, my only comment on the points around the agricultural land would be that seems like more of a discussion around local plan, because that's where we're looking at the classifications of the land and what we need in terms of housing, agriculture and other things. Go on.
Just a point on that, Chair. The initial local plan was delivered in 2019 and had a 5-year review, which was 2024. It would have been nice to be on time with that and everybody to be able to put their views forward and any alterations that we thought that we could do. We're now 12 months behind on that as October just gone. And I think it's a disaster that this council has allowed it to slip into going into its 7th year now without a review. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, well, that's not about this application. Right, so Victor, did you have any comments you wanted to make on the points made, questions asked?
Thank you, Chair, through you. the application before members today does not include proposals to extract coal from this site. On the agricultural land classification, I can explain a bit more about that if members would find it useful, but just in brief, best and most versatile land is land that falls within the grade 1, 2 or 3A classes of agricultural land. The classes go up to 5. There was high-level information considered at local plan preparation stage. Natural England publish quite general maps of the whole of the country. Oh, sorry, England, obviously. But they don't distinguish between 3A and 3B, so they are of limited use. I think we did say in the previous committee report for the Leeds Road site that there could be some best and most valuable land on this site, but the site is allocated for mixed-use development. As I mentioned earlier, inevitably, unavoidably, developing the site for those uses would result in the loss of the agricultural use of the site. I'd also point out that the MPPF paragraph 187B does mention best and most valuable land, but it doesn't say development must never happen on it. The Kirklees local plan refers to best and most valuable land in its vision, objectives and strategy commentary, but there's no policy in the local plan that says development can't happen on that land. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the local plan inspector did not require that matter to be considered any further at this site when she agreed to this site being allocated, and accordingly the site allocation and no other policies in the local plan require an agricultural land classification assessment to be carried out in support of an application like this.
Okay, any other comments or questions? Councillor Firth, yeah.
Yes, Chair, I'd just like to make a couple of comments. Forgive me, I didn't sit on the initial planning committee that approved this application quite some time ago now. But I'm aware that it was called in for a judicial review. So all the arguments we've heard today are all, I believe, forgive me if I'm wrong, are all well rehearsed. So I was something at a loss why we are revisiting all these. The only reason, and again forgive me if I'm wrong, is that the application was refused by the judicial review was because we didn't publish the 106 agreements. Now, as we have all the 106 agreements before us, should it be not that we're considering, rather than reviewing or rehashing what's gone before? Because it's all, as I say, well rehearsed. It's all been in the public arena and discussed, added for an item. I would ask you for some guidance on this, Chair, and perhaps our officers.
I think the answer to the question is that you're right in the sense that it's been discussed before and a decision made, but because the permission was quashed, we have to start again in theory in terms of the decision making. Obviously, some new members, well, many new members here, but I think in theory you're right. We've already discussed the detail of the application in general terms, but we do have to redetermine the application, whole application, not just that element of it. Unfortunately, Councillor Scott.
Thank you, Chair. Obviously, I didn't sit on the original committee, but I want to say that I have gone back and looked through the paperwork on it. And on the BNG, it's actually the subsequent new documents show that they're achieving the bionet gain on Dunwood. So it is a partial change to it. And I think when you're looking at this application, you can't just think about Haybeck. I know that's the one here today, but following on, you're going to get the Leeds Road application, which will also impact on Dunwood. So I want to be absolutely clear today that we have to be so careful in how we're looking at it and what answers we're getting back on this.
Matthias.
Thank you, Chair. I've listened really attentively, one to our speakers, for and against, and also our members. And I think you've heard from Victor, who's been with this case for, well, since it was submitted. Councillor Firth, you are right. We have rehearsed these arguments. The Chair's made the point that you have to reconsider things afresh. My view is, what is the change of planning circumstances since the Council here resolved to grant the Planning Committee granted planning permission, and that those matters of judicial review were tested. Now, they weren't upheld apart from the procedural matter about the Section 106. So I don't see any personal change of circumstances looking at the information. I think there are finessing that's been done, and if anything, I think the robustness of the legal agreements as a result of the challenge and the support, the comments that residents and their activists have made have strengthened those 106 agreements in relation to matters of biodiversity in particular. And therefore, you've heard from our officers, there are technical reviews that have happened both by the applicant and also particularly by the council, and there are no compelling reasons not to arrive at the same recommendation for you. Now, clearly you're free to make your own decision, but as your chief planner, I can't see a different outcome than the one we've recommended to you today. So I think we're at that point, Chair, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine, Matthias. Thanks for that. I was just going to say that from the Chair, I'm happy to, based on what I've heard, I'm happy to move the officer recommendation for approval. I'm comfortable that it's met. You know, we've talked, there's an impact, obviously, on the agricultural land and on Dunwood, but I'm happy with what's put forward in terms of the BNG and the other points. So I'll move that. Councillor Lee Richards, you put your hand up first.
I just wanted to ask that since 2022, when this first came to the Planning Committee, things have changed in terms of we've had updates to the State of Nature report, we've got more climate change, we've got more flooding of land, we need more natural flood management, we need more trees, etc., in order to help to mitigate that sort of drought and heavy rain that we're going through now. And don't we have a commitment to go for 30% of nature by 2030? Aren't we just slowing down our actions towards those promises that we've made? Thank you.
Councillor Firth, I think you had your hand up first.
Yes, Chair. I will second your proposal to move things forward. At the same time, I would like to thank the Student Liaison Group, because without them, I don't think we would be there without these mitigations and these strengthening mitigations that we have in front of us today.
Okay. We've had two more people indicate to speak, so I'll take those before we move to any votes. Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you. Yes, as Councillor Lee Richards said, we've become more conscious of the finite nature of the resources that we've got, and very much more conscious of the fact that these things will be used up. Yes, I understand the question about having enough houses for people to live in, but other countries seem to manage it differently in sense of not using agricultural land in the way that appears to be being used here, and it does worry me that I hear what is said about the quality of the agricultural land, but be that as it may, this land has been in productive agricultural use for quite a long time. Whatever grade it is, I'm still very tempted to go the same way as I did before, and that is vote against it. But I am very conscious of the issues that weigh on the other side as well. And I'm not suggesting that it would be an easy answer to do. again, as Councillor Lee Richter says, we are more conscious of the finite nature of the resources and flooding and things like that, although that doesn't necessarily apply to this site. But we are more conscious of it. So, thank you.
Yep. Okay, bringing Councillor Scott now as well, and then we'll...
Yeah, I was just coming in to say I was moving for refusal of this application.
So, we'll come to that in a second, depending on what happens. So, we've had move and second for approval, so I think we should deal with that first. If that's okay.
So we'll take...
This is for the officer recommendation to approve with the conditions set out in the report and the section 106 agreement.
Against.
Councillor Fair?
For.
Against.
Against.
Councillor Thompson?
Against.
Councillor Armour?
Against.
Councillor Homewood?
For.
That's 2 votes for, 5 against, Chair, so that falls.
Okay, so on that basis, I'm hearing we have a... you've obviously moved refusal, Councillor Scott, so I think what I need now is planning reasons for refusal that we can draft before we vote on that. Do you want to? Yeah, please.
Okay, so the first is the development would cause deterioration to the adjacent ancient woodlands, which is documented as irreplaceable habitat, and it's contrary to the paragraph of 193C of the MPPF, which states that such development should be refused unless it's wholly exceptional reasons and none have been provided as far as I'm concerned. Second, the proposal does not deliver biodiversity.
Could you just repeat the paragraph?
Yeah, 193C. Yeah. Second, the proposal does not deliver biodiversity net gain on the site. Instead, it relies on using Dunwood itself to achieve the BNG, which is not inappropriate as an existing high-value habitat and cannot be counted as compensatory gain. This is contrary to the MPPF biodiversity objectives of the local plan ecological requirements. The third reason is the proposed buffer to the ancient woodland is insufficient based on professional submissions received. A 15 to 20 metre buffer does not adequately prevent increased disturbance and therefore does not provide adequate protection. Now, we've heard difference in meterage. We've heard 50 metres. We've heard in different documents 15, 20. So that was my rationale behind that. Your fourth reason, there is insufficient certainty regarding the drainage and hydrological impact on the woodland. We've already heard there's culverts and becks underneath it, and it gets quite flooded in that area. The evidence before us does not conclusively demonstrate that the SUD strategy will not alter the water conditions affecting Dunwood. We've also heard Councillor Thompson, which I think was a very poignant remark that he made regarding the loss of agricultural land. I think it's really important. It's an existing site. There's a lot of use on that land. So that was my 5A. The next one is my 5th. Excuse me? Can I carry on? Yeah? Okay. The 5th. In the planning balance, the ecological harm and the risk to the ancient woodland significantly and demonstratively outweighs housing benefits, even when housing supply is under immense pressure. The protected ecological assets must be given substantial weight in this incident. And I was going to mention about the previous findings of the High Court, but I think Matthias and the other officers have actually gone through it and mentioned about what grounds. So they're the grounds that I am putting that forward.
Okay, so I think we can. I was just going to ask if anybody else had any other points to add, and then does anybody have anything in addition to what Councillor Scott has said that they want to add as a reason for refusal? Okay. So, yes, Matthias, yeah.
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Scott. There's quite a lot in there. So, I think we just need to be clear that our understanding is there is no BNG in the wood as proposed. It's not an inclusive part. The Section 106, the legal agreement that's drafted and on the public file for everyone to see, does say it's not there. So it would be unreasonable, in my judgment, to advise you to pursue that element. It's up to you. You're the committee. It might be helpful, because we had thought if the scenario did exist that you didn't want to go without the recommendation, as you're entitled to do, that we came up with some areas to help you. It's really helpful you've set yours out. If Victor can come in, if that's okay with you, just to shape some of these things. They are in the end, they're your reasons though. We're here to advise, you're here to decide. Thank you.
Okay. Victor, do you want to come in now, or do you need some time?
I can give you some initial wording that I've put together. Sorry, Councillor Scott, it might not capture everything that you've just mentioned there, but one of the reasons for refusal could read something along the lines of: the proposed development, due to its size and proximity to Dunwood, and due to the increased residential population that it would introduce, and due to its impacts on hydrology, excuse me, would result in a significant intensification in the use of Dunwood and resultant unacceptable harm to and deterioration of this ancient woodland, and harm caused by effects on its hydrology or drainage. Sorry, councillors, these words are quite newly drafted. And the local wildlife site, which is obviously a designation that applies to Dunwood, contrary to policies LP30 and LP33 of the Kirklees local plan and chapter 15 of the National Planning Policy Framework. And then just on the BNG, potential reason for refusal could read something along the lines of: it has not been demonstrated that the proposed development would deliver an adequate BNG on or adjacent to the site, contrary to policy. It'd be the similar policies LP30 and chapter 15 of the National Planning Policy Framework. Sorry, in those few minutes I haven't had a chance to draft something to do with the buffer.
So
or
can we
agricultural land.
Just based on that, can we maybe take a 5-minute adjournment just so that we can develop that point, so that when we come to actually vote on it, that we can have a clear understanding of what the resolution is? Is that okay, just to give us a bit of time just to quickly draft that? Would that be okay with everybody? And we'll just do that now. Okay, we'll be quick as possible. Okay, everyone. I think we are ready to make some progress. So we've had a look at drafting. So we'll go. Victor, is it you that's going to read out? So we'll go through the reasons. If we just go through, I don't know if they're in points, if we go through one at a time, Victor, or whatever, just to make sure that everyone's in agreement or have anything to add. But I'll let you do that.
Yep. Through you, Chair, would it be helpful if I've typed them out? Would it be helpful to have them on the screen for members? Sorry, it's a Word document. I can read it out if anyone can't read that from here. Should I do that anyway, maybe?
Read it anyway, but it is useful to be able to see it, I think.
First one, yeah. So if we go through these maybe one by one, Chair, I'd suggest, and Councillor Scott, I've tried to combine them thematically. So the first one reads, as drafted currently, the proposed development, due to its size and proximity to Dunwood, due to the hydrological impacts that will be caused, due to the increased residential population that the development would introduce, and due to the insufficient depth of the proposed buffer, that could be width of the proposed buffer, would result in changes to local hydrology, significant intensification in the use of Dunwood, and resultant unacceptable harm to and deterioration of this ancient woodland and local wildlife site, contrary to policies LP30 and LP33 of the Kirklees Local Plan and Chapter 15 of the National Planning Policy Framework.
Okay. Give you a second to digest that. But we want to check that everybody's happy with that before we move to the next bit. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. So if you are comfortable that that reflects where you're up to, one, Councillor Scott, and two, the rest of the members on the committee, the second two paragraphs, the one that relates to the BNG, so just to be clear, this application predates the 10% mandatory requirement for BNG. The council's policy in the local plan and the government's requirement at the time stated the minimum was a net gain. That could be 0.001% net gain, or it could have been 10%. But it had to be just a net gain. It's very, very hard to suggest to you committee members that there isn't a net gain. So I would offer my best advice to reflect on that. It feels unreasonable to have it. It's your reason. We will do our best if it stays in, but it doesn't necessarily follow through that there is any evidence to back that up. And then the third and final paragraph on the agricultural land classification, we did talk about this one at the previous application back in 22, and there was the reasoning given, and then that was a matter that the JR was fought on and wasn't successful in that regard. You can have it if you think it's right, but again, I don't think it's going to go to the heart of the matter, but it's your reasons. The first paragraph feels relevant. Whatever you decide, we'll do our best for you, but you have to be realistic about the evidence we can present to substantiate those three areas. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Thompson.
Just a question on the predating. So what we're saying is when the original application went in, it predates the now ruling as far as net gain of 10%. But are we not here and now as far as the planning's concerned and the application?
No, because the planning application you're deciding is the same one from before the legislation came in, and the guidance, the legislation is very clear. If you lodged a planning application before mandatory targets were introduced and the decisions made afterwards, like now, you're not liable for that mandatory 10%. You just have to have a net gain. So this application, strictly speaking, only requires to achieve a net gain. Yeah, I'm being sort of, exaggerating the point, but the point is that is a net gain, not a mandatory 10% requirement, which is what the applicant is proposing and the legal agreement secured. So there is evidence to say you're getting 10%, but the actual test of the planning application was just a net gain. And that second reason is very, very hard for me to say to you is reasonable. But if you want it, we'll do our best.
Are we still not able to say...
Microphone, please.
I turned it on. Are we still not able to say, in our opinion, it's not sufficient? Or have we got to be ruled by what the situation was when the original application was put in?
You're guided by what the policy says. LP30, which is the biodiversity policy, says new development shall achieve a net gain. And you've got an application here that you don't have to accept, but is showing you 10% with all the legal agreements around that. It's very difficult for you to articulate, I think, and particularly when we come to an appeal, where it's all about evidence to justify your reasons, that you have any evidence. I mean, certainly on those second two paragraphs, that's very difficult to say. I understand why you want it, and I'm not saying you can't do it. You just want... You just want to be reasonable, don't you, in how you make your decisions. And you want, if it's going to go to an appeal, which you would anticipate is the likely outcome should this application be refused, and an appeal would probably be a public inquiry, and that is all around what is your evidence to justify why you refused it. And I'm saying to you, very hard for me to imagine how we would create evidence for the second and third paragraph element. If you want us to do it, we'll do our best. I just wanted to put that on.
Can we just bring the legal officer for a second?
I just feel duty bound just to back up what Matthias has said there, because we have to look at it in terms of the consequences of a decision and the reasonableness of a decision and the evidence behind the decision. And I think Matthias has put it fairly well in that respect. So I just would just counsel caution on taking that reason to an appeal.
Councillor Scott?
Yeah, so I hear what you're saying, and I thank the officers that have worked tirelessly on this. I really do appreciate it. So if we took out the second and third paragraph, you could still go to appeal.
The second and third reason?
Yeah, second and third reason.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, second and third reason. We could still go to appeal anyway. They could still go to appeal.
They may still go to appeal, but there may be a better chance at appeal on the first one. I'm not saying there is or there isn't.
Right, okay.
I think the advice has been definitely the second and third reasons presented are not particularly strong.
Right, okay. So in that case, I'm proposing we go for the first paragraph and remove second, third. So I move that refusal on the first.
On the first paragraph, so we can delete the 2 and 3. Is everybody comfortable with that proposal? Councillor Thompson, go on.
Chair, they might be weak, but I just think we leave them in anyway, because what's the detriment of leaving them in? Okay.
I don't want to go into sort of nuts and bolts too much, because it's, we don't want to go into a sort of closed session. But the risk of an unreasonable reason for refusal is that a lot of work goes into fighting it, and then that work turns into a claim for costs in terms of the work that's gone into winning the case. I'm afraid that's the stark reality of it.
But at the end of the day, so we're abundantly clear, if you know that and you still want to have those reasons in, you are the planning committee. It is your decision what we refuse it on. We're just giving you our best advice as we see it. I mean, the first reason's difficult as it stands, but the second two jump out as being really, really challenging. If you want all three, if you want two of them, if you want one of them, you're the planning committee.
Okay, Councillor Scott, would you stick by your original point?
Yeah, I think in that case, I think we need to stick with the first rationale that's been given. I think that would be ideal. We don't. The other two.
Okay, members. So Councillor Scott has still stuck by her proposal that we remove the second two paragraphs. Councillor Thompson, you questioned that, but can I just get a kind of flavour? Are people happy with what Councillor Scott is suggesting? Yes. Yeah, is everyone else happy? Okay. So we're going to go. We'll go with that then. So Councillor Scott, you've moved that. Does anybody want to second that? I'll second it. Okay, seconded by Councillor Thompson. So we've had a mover and seconded for refusal on the basis of that. The other thing, just to clarify, that the go on then. Yep. That sounds fine.
And maybe send it back to the chair for approval, or just to actually approve the final wording. Yeah, okay. On behalf of the committee.
That's fine, Patricia.
Okay. Four.
For.
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 For. Against.
That's carried, Chair.
Okay, been carried, it's been refused. Thanks, everybody. We'll just take a short break now because we've got to move on to another application, but probably need a comfort break and we need to get new different people in. Right, welcome back everybody. We'll get going straight away. Oh, I haven't got my papers. So the next one is the agenda item 11. We've got actually two items here. We've got the planning permission and the listed building consent, but we'll do them as one item, so we'll take them together in effect, but they are two separate items on the agenda. So Nick, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Chair. Good day, members. Just waiting for the slide to appear. Is the slide coming up? Right. My name is Nick Hurst, Major Development Team Leader. The following presentation relates to two agenda items, items 11 and 12, each at Turnbridge Mills on Key Street, as Chair noted. The first item relates to the planning application at the site, which seeks redevelopment of the site for a mixed-use EG uses I, I2 and I3 and B8, including demolition of buildings and recladding of the southern elevation of the retained adjoining building, retention, conversion and renovation of the existing mill, office, workshop and engine house building, including alterations, erection of two new buildings, formation of two vehicle access points, service yard and parking area, and other associated works.
We need to try resharing.
Okay. I have shared it, yeah. I am in the meeting. Right. The second application is the associated list of building consent for the same works. For the avoidance of doubt, as Chair has again said, these are two separate items and applications, and therefore two separate votes will be required at the end. Nevertheless, given the similarities in association, I will do it as a single presentation. So the image before members shows the site, which consists of the two red line boundaries that can be seen. The land between the red line parcels is in the same ownership, but is not directly relevant to this application. The southern portion of the site fronts onto Key Street, while the northern fronts onto Old Leeds Road. Of note, the site is near to the University National Health Innovation Campus, which is currently under development, and it is also just outside of Huddersfield Town Centre, which can be seen on the left of the image. The historic environment plays a key role into this application. Within the site are two Grade 2 listed buildings, which are donated by the blue, which can be just seen there, and then the chimney pointed to there. So these are Hurst Mill, referred to as Building B within the report, which was listed during the course of the application, and then the separate listed chimney, which was listed some time ago. Outside of the site is Brierley Mill, also Grade 2 listed, just to the south of the site, and Turnbridge, a scheduled monument donated by the purple. For completeness, I'd also point out Huddersfield Town Centre Conservation Area, which hosts numerous listed buildings as well, to the west of the site, although by virtue of the distance, officers hold no concerns about impact on the conservation area or those listed buildings. This image sets out the names allocated to the various buildings on site. As noted previously, Hurst Mill is identified as Building B and can be seen there. I would also specifically highlight Building D, which is proposed to be retained. Demolition of most of the buildings within the site is proposed, per the key, that's denoted by the green areas with the blue, including the buildings to be retained. For the avoidance of doubt, the chimney is outside and is not proposed to be demolished. This photo faces towards the complex from the west of Key Street. These colours are for the ease of identification, with yellow being building F, which is to be demolished, red being the listed building Hurst Mill to be demolished, blue, building D to be retained, green is the listed chimney to be retained, and brown, building E to be demolished. There are other little buildings out of camera as well, which will be demolished per the demolition plan. These images are taken from the canal to the east of the site, principally showing the listed chimney, which is proposed to be retained, and the listed mill to be demolished. This image is taken further from along the canal to the south, and it's good to see as it shows the relationship between the listed chimney, the listed Hurst Mill, the listed Briley Mill, and the turn bridge, which can be seen just in the bottom right there. The left image shows the frontage of building D, which, although not listed, has attractive features and is proposed to be retained. Some of the buildings proposed to be demolished are of limited value, such as that of building O on the right there. These images are sample images of the vacant floor space within building B, although it should be noted that several other floors are occupied by various businesses. The photos you can see are sample images of within building D. So this is the same demolition plan from before, although I'll just hold on it a moment given the images you've seen since, just for a bit of context. So again, the first photo was taken down here, so you can see building F there to be demolished with the mill in the background there. So this is a proposed site layout plan. The new building will be sited centrally within the site, visible there. It will comprise of a central modern structure with a traditionally designed portion sited adjacent to Key Street, to the right-hand side there. Building D, as noted before, would be retained, and other space cleared within the site would be used for a service yard and parking. And again, the chimney is located just there by that rough hexagon. This image shows a proposed elevation from Key Street, and again, to help distinguish the elements. The red is building D, the blue is the traditionally designed frontage onto Key Street, purple is the setback section of the new building, and green is the exposed elevation from building A that would be reclad. At the moment, the mill's built up to it, so when that's gone, it'll expose that face. So they're going to make that good as part of the proposal. So again, I'll just step back to show. To the left of the slide shows the proposed west elevations, as will be visible from Watergate across the site's car park, and the right shows the view from the east across the canal. So the reports before members outline officers' full assessment of both the planning and listed building consent applications. In summary, the vast majority of planning considerations have been assessed and concluded to be acceptable. This includes the proposal's impact on residents, highways, and matters relating to drainage and ecology, among the various others identified within the report. The principal issue, which has been considered extensively within the Office report for both the planning listed building applications, is the proposal's impact on the historic environment and whether any benefits would outweigh the harm that would be caused through their loss. In accordance with the MPPF, the harm to heritage assets must be assessed and identified, and per the report, through its demolition, it has been identified that the proposal will cause a total loss of significance of Hurst Mill, Building B, also referred to as substantial harm. The proposal would also cause less than substantial harm to the settings of the Grade 2 listed chimney, Grade 2 listed Briley Mill, and the scheduled turn bridge. This harm must carry significant weight against the proposal. When considering a proposal causing substantial harm, paragraph 214 of the MPPF states that local planning authorities should refuse consent where proposals would lead to substantial harm unless one of two tests are passed. The first test is whether it can be demonstrated that the substantial harm or total loss is necessary to achieve substantial public benefits that outweigh the harm or loss. The second is that it's demonstrated all of the following apply. The nature of the heritage asset prevents all reasonable use of the site. No viable use of the heritage asset itself can be found in the medium term through appropriate marketing that would enable the conversion. C, conversion by grant funding or some other form of non-profit, charitable or public ownership is demonstrably not possible. And D, the harm or loss is outweighed by the benefits of bringing the site back into use. Considering that latter test first, and just to be clear, that's the A to D that I just ran through, as set out in the report, officers of the view this test has not been passed. The applicant has provided extensive information regarding various alternatives used for the site, including exploring potential conversions and partial demolitions as preferred possible options to the proposed complete demolition. This was alongside viability information, seeking to demonstrate that the more heritage-sensitive options were not viable. The Council appointed an external consultant to assist in assessing the applicant's submission, and in summary, while it was evident that the site has significant constraints, it was concluded by officers that the applicant fell short of clearly and convincingly evidencing the points A through D of paragraph 214 have been proven. Nevertheless, paragraph 214's tests are either or, that is to say, only one needs to be passed to demonstrate compliance. In this case, considering the first test of paragraph 214 as to whether the substantial harm or total loss is necessary to achieve substantial public benefits that outweigh that harm or loss, officers are on the fine planning balance of the view that this would be the case. The report sets out at length what the public benefits of the proposal are considered to be. In summary, those economic benefits would include the retention of a key local employer, Paxman Cooler Limited, and scope for them to continue to expand their business, which specialises in health technology via this purpose-built development within the Huddersfield area. Proximity to the University of Huddersfield's National Health Innovation Campus, which references the links between Paxman Cooler Limited and the university in terms of training for employees in specialist skills and the scheme's contribution to wider strategic aspirations to support the clustering of health and life sciences within a nationally designated investment zone focusing on the health and life sciences, which in turn forms part of the Council's Station to Stadium Enterprise Corridor. Potential for the development to act as a catalyst for further investment in the area as part of the formation of a local health tech cluster, as well as the contribution to the regeneration of the area and the freeing up accommodation at Paxman Cooler's limited current site in Fenny Bridge for the expansion of another local business. These benefits are, however, considered to be time sensitive, as Paxmans are required to vacate their current premises in the coming period. Having considered various locations, no appropriate alternative or site in Huddersfield has been identified, and that's working in collaboration with the Council's employment and jobs area departments. Paxman are likely required to consider alternative locations, including potentially outside of the Huddersfield Kirklees area, if unable to find this one. The project as proposed is only viable with the inclusion of grant funding. West Yorkshire Combined Authority are intending to provide the required funding subject to further assessments, which can only take place after planning permission were to be granted as part of the assessment zone grant programme. However, as is typical grant funding, this is time limited and subject to later review. Failure to secure the use will lead to continued degradation of the building, which will in turn make future alteration further complicated. It is, however, imperative that these public benefits, if minded to approve, are secured as far as reasonable to avoid a situation where the heritage asset is demolished without the necessary public benefits being delivered. The recommendation therefore includes a Section 106 agreement being recommended to be completed to secure a package of obligations to include that the lease agreement to be signed between the owner and intended occupier be evidenced, that confirmation of the agreement of grant funding from WICA be provided, confirmation of the arrangement and agreement of any external funding which will be necessary, such as bank loans, along with other specified works have been carried out and completed on site, including the stabilising Building D prior to demolition. Objections have been received from Historic England, two of the national amenity societies, namely Historic Buildings and Places and the Victorian Society. Historic Building and Places have also used their calling powers for the listed building consent. Concerns have also been raised by the Canal and River Trust, although supporting comments have been received from Kirklees Business and Economy and Town Centres. In terms of public representations, limited comments have been received, including 2 for the planning application and 3 for the listed building consent, which are considered within the committee report and update. To conclude, consideration of this application requires a careful balancing of the proposal's harmful impacts, that being to the historic environment, and against the public benefits, that being the economic ones. The heritage harm is clear and significant and must weigh heavily against the proposal. However, officers are satisfied that convincing justification of the public benefits has been set out and their delivery can be secured. The proposal is therefore concluded to comply with paragraph 214 of the MPPF. Therefore, on the fine consideration of the planning balances, officers recommend approval of both the planning application and listed building consent per the recommendations set out within the respective reports and with the amended condition wording noted within the update. I will just reiterate that if minded to approve for the listed building consent, the application must be notified to the Secretary of State as to whether they wish to call it in for their assessment per Historic Building and Places request. With nothing further to add, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we'll go to speakers. We've got 3 councillors who wish to speak. So just as I said before, there are two applications being considered. So in theory, you can speak to both those applications. So there's 5 minutes for each application. Ideally, I don't want to hear you all for 30 minutes. So, but I'll leave that at your discretion. But yeah, the first speaker I've got is Councillor Hawkins. So you're on Teams, Tyler. So I'll come over to you first when you're ready.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can. Perfect.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee members. Thank you for allowing me to speak in favour of this application. I'll save you all time and just speak in one go for a little under 5 minutes, if that's okay. The Station Stadium Master Plan was adopted in 2022, and it set out a clear vision. Huddersfield must become a hub of health innovation, digital technology and advanced manufacturing. This application is precisely that vision. Paxman Coolers is a Huddersfield success story. Founded here, headquartered here, and now recognised worldwide, their scalp cooling technology has transformed cancer care, and they're expanding now into new areas of chemotherapy-induced neuropathy. They employ more than 70 staff, report strong financial growth year on year, and have a long-standing partnership with the University of Huddersfield. Their decision to co-locate alongside the National Health and Innovation Campus is not just logical, it is strategic. It ensures their innovation pipeline remains rooted here in Huddersfield. The West Yorkshire Combined Authority has recognised this with their grant funding to support Paxman. It also highlights the time criticality of this opportunity. Paxman's lease at Fenny Bridge expires in 2026, and the grant funding is tied to their relocation. If delayed, we risk losing both the company and the funding. The wider benefits are significant. Reliance Precision, who are another leading manufacturer, will expand into Paxman's old sites, meaning 2 SMEs in Kirklees grow at once. The acute shortage of suitable industrial and innovation space in Huddersfield is also addressed. And the cluster effect around the National Health Innovation Centre is reinforced significantly, becoming a magnet for talent, research and inwards investment. This corridor is not just about buildings, it is about creating a world-class ecosystem. The National Health Innovation Campus already hosts specialist teaching, research and clinical facilities. The corridor links the station to the stadium, regenerating Old Leeds Road and the surrounding areas. Paxman's relocation is a cornerstone for that vision. Colleagues, this is about more than just one planning application. It is about delivering our economic and regeneration objectives, positioning Huddersfield at the forefront of health tech innovation and ensuring our town centre thrives. I strongly encourage you to give this application the significant weight it deserves and move to approve it. Thank you.
Cheers, thank you. Councillor Ahmed, Alex, if you want to come to the...
Thank you. Just need to clear my throat, sorry. Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. I'm here to speak strongly in favour of this application. Huddersfield has always been a town defined by industry, and ever since I first came here in the early 60s, textile was a beating heart of our local economy. Mills like Tunbridge were once symbols of prosperity, but we cannot ignore the reality that this sector has declined dramatically. Many of these buildings are now obsolete, costly to maintain, and increasingly derelict. This application offers us a chance to turn that legacy into a future of innovation. Paxman Coolers Limited is not just another local employer, as previously mentioned by Councillor Tyler Hawkins. They are a global leader in scalp cooling technology, helping chemotherapy patients across more than 50 countries preserve their dignity and identity during treatment. That is innovation born here in Huddersfield, and it's something that we should be proud of to anchor in our towns for the long term. The West Yorkshire Combined Authority has recognised the strategic importance of this project. Their support is conditional on Paxman being named occupier, which tells us everything about the credibility and the importance of this application. This is not speculative development. It's a carefully planned relocation of a proven growing business. The benefits go beyond Paxman alone. Their moves will unlock expansion for Reliance, Precision at Feeney Bridge, another advanced manufacturer with deep roots in Kirklees. So we're not just talking about our one company growing, we're talking about a chain reaction of private sector investment, two innovative firms expanding simultaneously and more highly quality jobs created locally. So, and let us not forget the wider context. The scheme sits at the heart of the station to stadium corridor, a nationally designated investment zone. Only 8 such zones exist across England, each unlocking £160 million in private investments over 10 years. Huddersfield is fortunate to be one of those zones, and this corridor is central to our regeneration strategy. Anchored by the university's National Health Innovation Campus, it's designed to cluster research, innovation, and advanced manufacturing together. Paxman's relocation is exactly the kind of project that makes the corridor real, not just words on a page. Colleagues, this is a once-in-a-lifetime, once-in-a-generation opportunity, and we can replace decline with growth, heritage with innovation, and uncertainty with confidence. We can show that Huddersfield is not just a town of the past, but a town of the future. So I strongly urge you to support the application. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Taylor, you want to come?
Thank you, Chair, members, officers. I won't repeat what's been said by my colleagues already. I'm here to speak in support of this application. I'm quite close to Reliance Precision and have, spoken often with Reliance about the challenges in finding a suitable site for them to expand. And I understand exactly the same problem has been experienced by Paxman as well. So what we have here is an opportunity that solves a problem for two of our local businesses that are both expanding, that both offer highly skilled jobs, offer apprenticeships and offer growth for our town. And I do accept that this is a difficult decision because we're balancing that move forward and that looking forward with obviously a concern for the retention of our heritage. But we can't allow the desire to retain our heritage to leave buildings that will remain empty, unviable, and actually will just continue to deteriorate and decline. And so what we have here is a compromise, and compromises are always difficult, but this feels like we've reached the right place in terms of balancing those opposing needs. And what we're doing is making sure that we have a suitable solution for Paxman. They can expand. I mean, I wrote down that this was a no-brainer. Why would they not want to be co-located with the University of Huddersfield that they're working closely with? Why would we not want them at the heart of the investment zone that we're trying to create with WICA? It retains jobs and investment in Huddersfield. It creates valuable new skilled jobs in Huddersfield in a fast-growing innovator. And it meets the council's objectives in terms of the plans for economic growth for Kirklees. So I don't see any reason why we should not be fully supporting this. If this didn't happen, if the decision today was not to go ahead, what we would be doing is, yes, retaining a listed mill, but we're leaving it to deteriorate and decline. And also, the mill that is being repurposed and repaired would also continue to decline and remain empty. And that doesn't seem like a viable solution to me. So I fully support this proposal and hope that the committee will find favour. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we have some other residents and applicants to comment. Again, because it's two applications, you can have double time, so you can have 6 minutes. But if you want to take a little less time than that, I'd be happy as well. So Manisha Kaushik, you're first.
Good afternoon, Chair and committee members and officers. I speak today as a resident of Dalton and in favor of this application. Our home is steeped in the history of the many mills and textile factories that once defined our town. They were symbol of prosperity, but we all know those industries have declined. Many of the old buildings are now difficult to maintain, some falling into disrepair, and they no longer serve the community as they once did. That is why I welcome this proposal. It respects our heritage while giving the site a new purpose. Paxman Coolers is a company we can be proud of. Born in Huddersfield, now recognized worldwide for its innovation scalp cooling technology. Their decision to stay here, expand here, and invest here is a vote to confidence of our town. I am also encouraged by the wider benefit Reliance Percussion will expand into Paxman's old site, meaning two local firms grow at once. That is real private sector investment, creating jobs and opportunities and for local people. And the location matters. The station to stadium corridor is central to the council regeneration plans. By bringing Paxman into this corridor alongside the university's National Health Innovation Campus, we are building a cluster of innovation that will attract talent and investment for years to come. As a resident, I want Huddersfield to be known not just for its past, but for its future. This scheme gives us that chance, so please support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person we've got is Ian Brealey. Start when you're ready.
Thank you, Chair, committee members, officers. Good afternoon. My name is Ian Brealey. I'm the Managing Director of John L. Brealey Limited, the joint applicant with Paxman. We basically have two sites on either side of Key Street. JLB Mill on Sainsbury's side was listed in 1978. We've recently spent over £340,000 repairing roofs, 100,000 of that being extra cost due to the listed status of the building. And we've just had a quote for £168,000 of work to do with fire refuges. And these are not the only costs. Hurst Mill, on the other side of the road, was not listed until May 2025 this year. And that is in spite of the site clearly having been reviewed by Historic England in both 1978 and later in 2012 when the chimney was listed. For 25 years, we have steadily consolidated the textile business from the unlisted Hurst side into the listed JLB Mill, whilst trying to find tenants that would pay a rent to sustain the Hurst Mill buildings. However, the rent from tenants we found simply isn't enough for the substantial work that is now needed. By 2017, we concluded that the only economically sustainable solution was to demolish all the old buildings on the Hurst Mill side. And we met with Historic England and Kirklees Council's conservation officers to discuss this. That is 8 years ago. The independently reviewed sequential options assessment shows the process we've been through over the years and confirms there are no viable options without grant funding. We are hardly alone in this position. Look at the George Hotel, the Cultural Heart, the Monday Market, museums in Kirklees and numerous other buildings. The independent report mentions West Yorkshire Combined Authority's brownfield funding, £67 million for 4,500 to 6,000 homes. That's something like £11,000 to £15,000 grant per home. Assuming 85 square metres per flat, we could get 7 flats per floor. Ground floor for parking is 35 flats in all, which equals £390,000 to £520,000 of grant funding. We have deficits of £6 million on residential appraisals. We would still be £5.5 million short to bring forward a residential scheme. So this funding is simply not an option, and no one can point us to any funding that will work, other than Kirklees Council, who approached us in 2023 about the planned West Yorkshire Combined Authorities investment zone, which tied into the Kirklees Station to Stadium Corridor plan. That aligned with both Paxman's and Reliance's needs for new premises. And when we looked at how everything fitted together, including Paxman then being next to the university, it was clear that this is a fantastic opportunity, and we finally have an option that works. We started the pre-application process in April last year, met Historic England and the Council Planning Department in August. Following various discussions, in November last year, we met with planning and agreed to amend the design from being complete demolition of the whole site to retaining the smaller multi-storey building on Key Street, Building D. We are in very advanced stages with West Yorkshire Combined Authority on their grant. Crucially, this includes an extra £1 million needed to renovate Building D, i.e. it will cost £1 million less to build a completely new building. Without grant funding, there are no viable options to retain any of the older buildings. This application will solve a serious problem we have, regenerate a part of our site and allow us to focus on the JLB listed mill, secure the maintenance of the listed chimney, retain and renovate the historic Building D, provide premises for Paxman, keeping those jobs in Kirklees and creating new jobs, free up Reliance's Paxman site for Reliance with the same jobs and broader benefits, create synergies with the university, bring external investment into Kirklees, be the first private sector investment in the investment zone, and continue the development of the station to stadium corridor. As stated in the letters of support from Kirklees Council Business and Economy and Town Centre Regeneration Departments, this project is key to delivering the Council's economic and regeneration objectives. Committee, this is a once in a generation, if not once in 4 generations chance. We ask that you please grasp this opportunity today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we've got Emma Thornhill. And you can start when you're ready.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. My name's Emma Thornhill. I'm the Group Finance Director for Paxman Coolers Limited. First of all, I'd like to send an apology from our CEO, Richard Paxman. He wanted to be here, but he's currently away on business in Asia. He wanted to be here because he's passionate about not just what this opportunity means to Paxman, but more importantly, the people at Paxman who live in and work in Kirklees, the opportunities that will give local people, the graduates and the benefits in the region for putting health tech on the map for Huddersfield. The company was born out of Huddersfield and wants to continue to grow here. Paxman is one of West Yorkshire's flagship medtech companies, one of Huddersfield's most prolific business success stories. This family firm has grown into a global leader in cancer cooling technologies with systems now in hospitals in Europe, North America and Asia. And the next phase is about scaling that innovation further, expanding research and development, including new projects in limb cryocompression for nerve protection and next generation scalp cooling. Paxman's clear ambition is to make West Yorkshire the focal point for this future growth, anchoring its global operations, clinical trials and product development in Huddersfield rather than in overseas hubs. For a number of years, Paxman has been searching for the right premises to move and to grow into, working closely with Kirklees Council to try and find an appropriate site with a mixture of modern office, manufacturing, research and development and warehousing facilities. But in reality, this is lacking in Kirklees. There has been nowhere appropriate, nor could we fully develop our current space we occupy for future expansion. So we are now at crisis point. We need an urgent move to prepare for our launch of our second product and as well expand our current market. Not achieving this move will have a serious impact on our current ambitious growth plans, which we have a proven track record of 30% year-on-year growth since 2016. Conversations with the landlord of Turnbridge Mills has been the first promise of the right solution for Paxman. The Paxman Innovation Centre at the mill is the vehicle for this ambition. It will create a new permanent home for our advanced manufacturing, research and development skills and bring in a long underused mill back into the productive use within the stadium to station corridor. Moving from Fenny Bridge will also give Reliance the opportunity to grow as we lease our current building from them, and the ultimate intention is that Reliance will expand their manufacturing activities onto that site over the next year or so. They already have a planning application, a pre-planning application, and there's a formal one going in this week. Reliance are also under extreme pressure to expand their current location, adding to this urgency. So both of these businesses are of considerable importance to the local economy. So what's being delivered? A 27,000-foot health tech facility in Turnbridge Mills, modern digital manufacturing space for oncology and cooling devices, a dedicated research and development laboratory for cryotherapy treatments, training and collaboration areas including a skills academy that will develop existing skills, PhDs and knowledge transfer partnerships. The design retains and sensitively tries to reuse key elements of the mill while developing a fit-for-purpose building that will support the advanced manufacturing and clinical innovation. So why does this matter to Huddersfield and Kirklees? Creation of 60 high-value roles across engineering, science, manufacturing and commercial functions with a commitment to recruit from West Yorkshire where possible. This will be in addition to the currently over 80 roles we already have in place, 140 worldwide. New skills and opportunity, a dedicated skills academy would support around 130 learners over 5 years. This would be in partnership with the University of Huddersfield and the National Health Innovation Campus. This includes apprenticeships, placements and routes into medtech for the West Yorkshire population with a focus on underrepresented groups. This would be a step change for the West Yorkshire medtech cluster. The development will act as an anchor for Paxman to facilitate its regional Yorkshire research and development collaborations with supply chain and university partners. It will provide access to specialist labs and opportunities for the local SMEs to engage in collaborative product testing, prototyping and supply chain activity. It is designed to be a game-changing asset for the regional health tech and medtech ecosystem. And ultimately, all this leads to better outcomes for cancer patients. The centre will accelerate the development of cooling technologies with helping people tolerate chemotherapy with fewer side effects, including hair loss and nerve damage to hands and feet and oncology treatment side effects. So why Turnbridge Mills? Turnbridge Mills provides the only viable location in West Yorkshire capable of accommodating this next phase of growth for Paxman. The site offers immediate proximity to the National Health Innovation Campus and University of Huddersfield, enabling close collaboration in research, trials and skills development, space for integrated R&D, manufacturing, operations all under one roof, which is essential for rapid product development and clinical validation, and a strategic position within the stadium to station corridor, aligning the company with Kirklees' long-term regeneration and innovation priorities. A permanent base that allows global research partnerships to be coordinated from Huddersfield rather than the current international centres such as Boston, Houston or Singapore. So by delivering this scheme at this location, Paxman can anchor its international growth in Huddersfield, secure and expand high-value employment and help position West Yorkshire as a global centre for oncology, cryotherapy innovation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And our last speaker is Agent Nick Willock.
Good afternoon, my name is Nick Willock, the planning agent for this project. The sequential options report requested by officers provides a clear audit of evidence in discounting various other redevelopment options, including whether the Hurst Mill, the recently listed one, could be converted to various uses. The Council's independent advisors, Aspinall Verde, agree that the options considered all indicate non-viability and that none of the options presented are viable without grant funding. Historic England have confirmed on multiple occasions that no grant funding is available for the refurbishment of mill buildings on this site. As such, the ongoing and future maintenance costs of these buildings can only be provided by the landowner acting alone without subsidy. The reality is that JLB simply cannot maintain all the buildings going forward. Aspinall Verde advised that the National Lottery Heritage Enterprise Fund was a possibility. However, that is specifically for not-for-profit organisations. Your conservation officer has confirmed that given the significant roof repairs required and the ongoing maintenance costs, I quote, "It is highly unlikely a charity or a not-for-profit organisation could feasibly take on the building and sustain its upkeep." Members, the trajectory for the Hurst Mill and others is one of continued decline and eventual total dereliction. Nothing can change this ongoing and worsening liability crisis created by an excessive number of obsolete mill buildings. Without a viable solution, JLB cannot sustain the ongoing financial drain on its core business, and unless resolved, the situation will eventually threaten its very existence. Aside from the views expressed by national heritage bodies about the Hurst Mill in this case, the applicants have been advised by heritage experts Humble Heritage, independent of Historic England. Their professional opinion was that Hurst Mill, the one recently listed by Historic England, did not meet the threshold for listing because of its late Victorian age, its utilitarian design, and its lack of association with any notable engineers or architects. Humble Heritage also commented that their views on the low merits of Hurst Mill accorded with earlier decisions made by Historic England in 1978 when the JLB mill was listed and in 2012 when the chimney was listed, but the Hurst Mill was not. In other words, there were two previous occasions stretching back 47 years when the site was assessed by Historic England and Hurst Mill was not deemed sufficiently important to merit listing. So the timing of the decision to list Hurst Mill straight after we submitted the applications is, to put it politely, questionable. The Council's Business Kirklees team have expressed their, I quote, "strong support for what is a very significant project within Huddersfield's Station to Stadium corridor and for West Yorkshire Investment Zone. In the event that planning permission is granted, Paxman Coolers will play a key role in the future development and growth of the health and life sciences cluster and in the wider regeneration of the corridor." The Council's head of town centre regeneration has stated, and I quote again, "I express my strong support for the proposed redevelopment of Turnbridge Mills, including the relocation of Paxman Coolers. The wider economic benefits are significant: retention and growth of a key local employer, unlocking expansion for Reliance Precision, and reinforcing Huddersfield's position as a centre for health innovation." He goes on to state, "I would like to highlight the strategic significance of the investment zone and the public and economic benefits of the scheme, the time-critical nature of the opportunity, the lack of alternative sites, and the importance of the Wicker Grant in bridging the viability gap. We have worked with your officers over the past 18 months, agreeing to retain the historic Building D on Key Street to incorporate into the development. Your own conservation officer stated again, I quote, "Without the Wicker funding, Building D would not receive any investment and the long-term future of all the heritage assets on this site could be brought into question. So allowing the demolition of one mill and retaining another with the funding to repair the building and bringing it back into full use could be seen as a positive compromise. This opportunity may not occur again and would leave the whole site in danger." That's what the conservation officer said. Members, a lot of people have said this, but I repeat it, this is a rare once-in-a-generation opportunity. Granting permission for this scheme will enable support and growth of Paxman's and help to ensure the long-term viability of the JLB group on their existing site, also enabling them to manage and maintain the JLB listed mill and the chimney, the other two listed buildings on the site. In summary, the scheme provides a highly significant win-win for three important local businesses: the National Health Innovation Campus, the Station to Stadium Corridor, the West Yorkshire Investment Zone, and the economy of Huddersfield and Kirklees. Your officers are advising it's essentially a case of weighing the public benefits of the scheme against heritage harm. They are recommending that the public benefits, particularly the substantial economic benefits, outweigh the heritage harm. We therefore respectfully request that planning permission and listed building consent is granted in accordance with your officer's recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's all our speakers. So I'll move to members. Councillor Armour, you'd said a while ago you wanted to speak.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Now then, I'm very concerned to protect as much of the industrial heritage of Huddersfield as is possible. And I actually know this area quite well because for a number of years I worked at Holset's Engineers, just below the canal. But we should not seek to preserve the town or what's left of it. We've lost a lot of the important part of the town. But we should not seek to preserve what's left of it in Aspic. The world moves on. And Huddersfield is a working town, not a museum. I've looked at the documentation, the document pack, and in there mention is made of the built context of the Tern Bridge. But this bridge has already lost most of its historical significance with the demolition, the wholesale demolition of the housing below the canal. The Tern Bridge was the vital connection between the workforce on the one side of the canal and the workshops on the other. So it actually doesn't have its full context anyway now. And why it's called a Tern Bridge, I don't know. It's a lift bridge. But there you go. And the application, or the applications probably, there's two to be correct. Applications provide for very valuable employment opportunities, which contribute to the regeneration of this important part of Huddersfield as a university campus as well, of course, and will greatly assist Paxman Coolers in particular, which is an internationally recognised innovative manufacturer of important medical equipment. And I didn't read the website, I made that one up myself. And this is in keeping with the historical manufacturing nature of the area. So we've got the historical context, continuity. It's a manufacturing area, has been forever, and will continue to be. So on balance, and yes, there are pros and cons, I think that the benefits of these proposals outweigh the loss of some redundant buildings which, whilst important to their own right, they are not of the highest historical value. I do regret the loss of buildings, especially Building B, but I very much welcome the positive economic benefits. I'll propose the officer recommendations, Chairman.
Okay, so you're proposing officer recommendation for both of them?
For both, yes.
Okay. Councillor Firth, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. Can I first of all thank officers, councillors, fellow councillors, and the applicant and future users, all being well, for articulating the uses or the future uses of this building. I'll be perfectly honest, this is the easiest decision that I've ever taken on a planning committee, and I've sat on quite a few planning committees in my time, not as many as my colleague here, but quite a lot. And I take great pleasure in seconding the officer recommendation.
Thank you. Yeah, for both the planning and the listed buildings.
I thought we'd taken them as one, that's why I've said.
Well, we have to vote separately, but I'll take that.
On both applications,
okay.
Chair.
Councillor Pinnock, you want to come in?
Thank you. It's unlike previous decision. This one is on the well. It's not in the end easy because it requires a decision to kill something off, if I can put it that way. It's because of the nature of the buildings, and this building is not unusual amongst this sort of thing, that it is in a bad way and can't find a useful way of bringing it back into use. However, the proposed new use is so far into the future, if you like, that is going to produce absolute wonderful benefits for so many people, and not only the patients but also the people who will be associated with Huddersfield University in training to use equipment of this kind and create a hub for the local area that will probably attract other businesses as well. So I have no hesitation in supporting this. It is sad to lose the building that is going to go, and I understand. I know what I was going to say. That I want to make absolutely sure that as much as is possible is done to record what is in the building. I know there is, from other contexts, a standard procedure for dealing with this. If there's any way in which examples of the designs or whatever can be preserved in some way or other, and I leave that up to other people to decide, then please can you see if you can do that?
Yeah, through you, Chair. So on the list of building consent, there is a recommended condition for the recording of certain buildings B, C, E and G. If it's any use, I will, through you, Chair, invite the Conservation Officer to come through if you just want to talk through what that process includes to give Councillor Pinnock some comfort and understanding.
Thank you. Joanne Tansley, Conservation Design. So yeah, we've requested that there is a recording, level 3 recording of that. So they will go through and take photos of all the building and record any sort of key features of that building as well. We've also asked for a condition for there to be interpretation boards put onto the site, and against pre-commencement condition. So there's things like the old plans of the buildings could be put onto those interpretation boards and put around the site. So the community is still going to be able to see what was there, how it was built, how it was designed, and the history of that whole area. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Councillor Scott, did you want to come in?
Thank you, Eric. Okay, actually, it's been really interesting to listen to about what's actually been said today, because I had the privilege of going down to Paxman when they launched about the technology that they developed. And I know we have to view this on planning rather than what business could go in there. So it's just some of the notes I just put down there. It's an excellent idea because it is on the Stadium Enterprise Corridor. It's part of the master plan. We're crying out for investment in Kirklees. And I found it interesting today to listen about the listed building, how it become a listed building after the application come in. I do see about the historic environment and how it can harm, but also you've got to do that on balance because we can record and it is being reutilised, that building. There isn't a total loss of all the buildings on that site, but people wanting to retain the whole site, they forget somebody has to invest in it and put money into that site to preserve it. It was interesting to hear about the chimney, about the preservation of the chimney and the ongoing maintenance that is being kept up. So that's being said that they would do that. The benefits for us here in Kirklees immense, high-tech engineering, here on our doorstep. And there's also about the jobs that will come with it. I think that's the public benefit that weighs it. For me, I'm totally supportive of this application. But I do think it's important that whilst we're delegating the officers to the officer's decision, we do pick up the 106 element that if it's not completed within 3 months, as it says, that it's left to delegate to officers their decision to refuse. Okay.
Yeah, I think there's some important conditions in there around making sure that it isn't demolished and then not, it can't be funded. Councillor Thompson, do you want to come in before we move to the vote?
Thank you, Chair. No objection to the officer's decision. It was more of a request, or maybe if it was supported a condition that any of the demolition that takes place is to reuse as much of the material that's demolished as possible on the new builds. it would be a nice to have. I know that it's sometimes difficult in limited space to keep stone and structures, etc. But I think as far as the nature of the building, it would be nice to use some of the reclaimed stuff, if that's possible. Thank you, Chair.
Through you, Chair, that is the intention. Ultimately, when you are demolishing a building and reusing the stone, some of it can't be saved. But yes, the intention is that as much as possible will be used. And there is a condition for the materials to be submitted and approved. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Richards, you're the final one, and then we're going to...
Thank you. As much as it's sad to see a Grade 2 listed building go, even if it has only very recently been listed, I agree with other speakers that the benefits outweigh any harm caused by the loss of it. Because if you look at the other side of a turn bridge, you're looking at a brick wall. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've had a mover and seconder for both of the parts of the application, so we'd agree to go through them both separately, yeah? Okay.
So the first vote is on the planning application, and that's authority delegated to the Head of Planning and Development to approve in order to complete the conditions, including the 37 in the report, and subject to the revision of condition 3 to include building D1, which was in the update, and the section 106 agreement with, I think, 3 heads of terms.
Mm-hmm.
Is it 4? With the heads of terms that were set out in the report.
Yeah.
Councillor Scott? 4. Councillor Firth?
4.
Councillor Pinnock?
4.
Councillor Lee Richards?
4.
Councillor Thompson?
4.
Councillor Armour?
4.
Councillor Homewood?
4.
That's carried unanimous, Chair. So
Yep.
if we move on to the listed building consent application, again with the amendment to the condition to include building D1 and the section 106 agreement. Councillor Scott? 4. Councillor Firth?
4.
Councillor Pinnock?
4.
Councillor Lee Richards?
4.
Councillor Thompson?
4.
Councillor Armour?
4.
Councillor Homewood?
4.
Again, carried unanimous, Chair.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. We'll just give a second if anybody wants to leave before we go to the final. Hopefully the final one is not going to be too difficult. We'll see. That's why we need to be quick. Okay, we'll go to item 13. Louise, we're going to be handing over to you for this one.
Thank you, Chair.
Oh, yeah, we'll start the application, but if you want to just check if they're not. Yeah. Okay. Louise, we'll go hand over
Thank
to
you, Chair. So my name is Louise Bearcroft and I'm a senior planner in the Majors and Minerals team. So the site is land off Kenmore Drive to the northwest of Cleckheaton Town Centre. This is an application under Section 73 to amend an extra care residential development to install air source heat pumps, a plant room, a substation and to amend the bin store details. Members will recall the application was brought to the previous meeting where it was deferred to explore alternative options for their location, including within the car park or additional mitigations. I would draw members' attention firstly to the update in respect of the representation received and within it a request for deferral of the application. The request concerns the timing of publication of documents and their publicity and whether Environmental Health had opportunity to provide a thorough response for members to consider today. The representation also raises concerns regarding the robustness of the noise report. Following the previous deferral, amended plans and a corresponding noise impact assessment were submitted and advertised. A further representation was received. Environmental Health were consulted and requested further evidence of the impact on noise-sensitive receptor 1A, which is for coach house paddocks. This was provided as an additional table appended to the noise report, which was then resubmitted on the last day of the publicity period. Environmental Health assessed this document as revised and submitted their response. Officers acknowledged that this additional evidence was submitted at the end of the publicity period. However, a representation from the owner-occupier of that property had already been received in response to the amender plans. And in addition, officers forwarded the owners and occupiers of this property a copy of the report on the day of its receipt, inviting any further comments. Officers consider they have made reasonable efforts to notify on the amender plans. Officers acknowledge the technical comments made in the representation. However, Environmental Health have no further comments to add to their consultation response. So members have previously visited the site, and these photographs show the relevant part of the site to the south of the building, looking south and west. These photographs show views looking south and east. This is the proposed layout as revised. So the air source heat pump compound, the plant room, substation, the bin store are now to be sited in the existing car park. This will result in the displacement of 4 car parking spaces, and the wider car parking area is being redesigned to accommodate these spaces, principally by removing some small areas of landscaping within the car park. Overall, there will be no reduction in the number of parking spaces. The 4 air source heat pumps will be within an enclosure with timber boards, and the design incorporates a pergola-style roof. The plant room would be of brick construction with a single-ply flat roof. And the substation would also be of brick construction with a hipped roof. The bin store would be of timber construction with a pergola-style roof also, and has a capacity of 14 bins. Additional bin storage is now proposed internally as well. As members will recall, concern was raised in the representations regarding potential noise and vibration impacts. The revised noise impact assessment has considered the nearest noise-sensitive receptors, and this has been assessed by Environmental Health. In the revised location, the nearest noise-sensitive receptor 1A, which is 4 coach house paddocks, is approximately 30 metres from the centre of the air source heat pump compound. Previously, it was 15 metres away. The report has also considered noise-sensitive receptor 1B, which is a care home, approximately 45 metres away. A BS 4142 assessment has been conducted, indicating there's no impact for both daytime and nighttime to either receptor. And Environmental Health accept the findings of that report. Officers do recommend 2 additional conditions. 1, that all works that form part of the mitigation identified in the noise report shall be completed and retained thereafter. And 2, that a validation report for the assumptions on the noise report shall be provided and approved. In respect of other matters, officers considered there be no detrimental overbearing impact or loss of outlook, and officers raised no objections to the design of the air source heat pump enclosure, plant room, substation or bin store. The proposal does necessitate a revision to the site and the size of the bin store, and it has been reduced in capacity. The Waste Collection Authority have been consulted and they don't raise an objection, as the proposal now includes internal bin storage as well. The variation is not considered to impact upon any other material planning considerations which remain previously assessed. As this is a new application under Section 73, an approval would result in the issuing of a new permission, and therefore the recommended conditions include those imposed on the earlier permission that continue to have effect. In addition, officers recommend the 2 additional conditions, and updated wording is provided in the update. In conclusion, officer recommendation is for approval. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks. We've got 2 speakers. Hayley Knight, you're first. If you want to come to the, here. And you've got 3 minutes to make your representation. If you just press the button to turn on the microphone, the sort of big one.
Good afternoon, councillors, and thank you for this opportunity to present. The applicant is Housing 21, a leading provider of safe, quality and affordable homes for older people in the UK. They've been the council's partner in delivering this complex site in Cleckheaton so as to provide much needed affordable homes for local older people. The parent permission to this amendment provides 80 affordable homes that will be available on a social rent tenure, for which Kirklees Council have 100% nomination rights on the first lets. The amendments proposed will enable the scheme to be heated by air source heat pumps. Firstly, please note the applicant wishes to install these because this is one of the most sustainable ways to heat the building, certainly more so than conventional methods. And most importantly, Housing 21 recognises that this technology will reduce utility bills for their tenants in perpetuity, who, given the affordable rental tenures of the apartments, will be of modest means. To give you an idea of the saving to each tenant, a sample Housing 21 apartment would usually incur a total energy bill of £2,267 a year, would have their bills reduced to about £1,044 a year when connected to a communal air source heat pump. We consider this to be an essential change to the scheme, particularly given the government's changes to winter fuel allowance for pensioners. The applicant is aware of neighbours and this committee's concerns of the equipment on local amenity, and thus the application has always been accompanied by robust noise assessments. Since October's planning committee, the equipment has been relocated such that the air source heat pumps are now 33 metres away from the nearest residential house, and the substation is 8 metres further into the car park. This increased distance, together with mitigation measures set out in the noise assessment and submitted plans, include a 2.8 metre high close boarded fence enclosure, installation of bolt-on acoustic kit to the equipment, mounting of the equipment on anti-vibration supports and ongoing maintenance. And a condition is attached to ensure that all of this mitigation is effective and will work. All of this ensures that the equipment will have a no observed level effect, which planning practice guidance states means there'll be no effect at all on health or quality of life that can be detected. The equipment is proposed to be housed in an attractive timber enclosure, and as a result of its location has led to changes in the car park and bin store, albeit note that the number of parking spaces and capacity of waste storage on site overall remains the same. Finally, as set out in your report, none of your officers have objected to this amendment, and I therefore respectfully request that you vote to approve the scheme today. And we do welcome any questions from the committee, should the chair allow, and that's the purpose of John being registered to speak as well.
Okay, so we'll go to members. Thanks for that. We'll go to members then, if that's the case. Sorry, just one other thing that I want.
We did have John to speak. No, do you not want to speak, John?
I think you just said he'd done 20.
Just to answer. Right, okay,
Yeah.
sorry.
That's fine. Go on, Councillor Pinnock.
Thank you very much. I totally welcome this. The thing I want to emphasise is that as far as ward members are concerned, we are totally delighted in this development, and have always been behind it right from the beginning. But I have been at pains to make sure that it doesn't cause any nuisance to anybody in the interests of having what is described as, I can't remember the words that were used, but an extremely good and economic source of heat. And I'm really, really grateful for that. So I have no hesitation in arriving at this point and saying I'm wholeheartedly behind it. Thank you.
Councillor Scott.
Yeah, I'd like to second what Councillor Pinnock said, and it's actually nice and refreshing to hear that they've took the time when we deferred the application, come back and worked with officers. And yeah, I'm happy to support that. Second it.
Councillor Pinnock, were you moving the recommendation, or were you just saying you supported it?
No, I'm sorry.
Just to be clear.
Not getting my words out properly. Yes, I'm moving it. Yes.
Just for full disclosure, the person who objected previously, or who is objected, did request that we defer the application, but there's not any specific reason behind that, I think, other than to look at more information. So I would suggest we don't do that, but I'm just letting you know that that request was made. Okay. So I think we've had a mover and seconder, so I think we can move to the vote. I think, Sheila, on this.
Yes, so they...
Four.
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 Four. Four. Okay, that's done. Thanks everybody. That's the end of the meeting. Appreciate it. It was a tough one, but we got there. Thanks. Enjoy your evening.